Hey, it was Vatke's deal.
He's at the
Okay. No. Sherry.
Council workshop meeting, Monday, November 21st, 6 p.m. Bayer,
Here.
Briggs,
Here.
Coulter,
Here.
Heidrich,
Here.
Holtmeyer,
Here.
Patke,
I'm here.
Reed,
Yes.
Russells.
Here.
Please rise for Pledge of Allegiance. Will all the committee members answer if they have or have not read the minutes of the meeting dated October 3rd, 2022? Bayer,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Coulter,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Patke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Wessels.
Aye. Need a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Patke, second by Holtmeyer to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Vote, the motion passes.
Presentations, Missouri DNR MS4 audit.
Okay, good evening, council. Earlier this year, we had a DNR let us know that we'd be under audit for our MS4 program. This was the second time that the program has been audited since 2018. We went through an audit situation in 2018 as well. Coming out of that audit, we were issued a letter of warning for not completing some of the tasks required by the stormwater permit. There are essentially 6 minimum control measures that you have to put in place that range from public education to construction site development to what's called post-construction BMPs, which would essentially be water quality type features within our developments. We've been in MS4, I believe, since 2002 when we became a population of 10,000. So this has been kind of an ongoing thing that we've been required by the Missouri Department of Natural Resources to basically implement. And I know that's a lot, and I know you hear me say the word MS4 a lot, and we utilize that to get some of our projects and things done. So if there's any, with the acronyms and things that come up, just make sure you ask so we can make sure that we're on our understanding about what we are required by this permit to do. So in the 2022 audit, there were various items that we are not doing sufficiently. Some of those that we may be doing, but we aren't properly documenting them. So for example, we do public education and outreach type things. I talk to middle school kids. I go to the high school. I do those things probably 2 or 3 times a year, but I don't document some of the things that we discuss, and I don't put those PowerPoints in our digital binder. So things like that. Other things, we don't do like staff education, so we don't hold like training sessions for all of our staff, park staff, street staff, those things, which is something that we need to be doing as well. So some of these things are some low-hanging fruit stuff that we can easily get into compliance on. Others, and we do have our friends with DNR here, but I'll just give you a little background. Other things such as, it's called illicit discharge detection and elimination. So essentially, we're supposed to be inspecting every one of our stormwater pipe outlets. So anytime a pipe outlets to a ditch or a creek or anything, we're supposed to be inspecting them for certain contaminants, those type of things. Again, we knew we had that, but I had to actually map those first, which we've been doing that with our GIS. We've had a skeleton map put together for quite some time, but it was us just getting the inspection checklist ready to go and coming up with who does that and what is that program. So we've put together some pretty good checklists. It's just we never really got to the point of implementing them since that 2018 audit. And again, I'm not one to blame COVID, but we did have some priorities there that was really hard for me to keep up on. Others was construction site inspections, just working with the contractor community to understand the importance. That's the city doing inspections on their sites as well. So city staff inspecting their construction sites. At the time, I don't know what this is. At the time, sure. it takes staff time to do that. So I have to sit there and I have to figure out how we get those man hours to do those things. Not to say that your construction community has had a problem with that. I'm just saying, again, documentation of us getting our eyes on the ground to do those things. And then the other one, which was probably the more pressing one, even in the 2018, was post-construction called best management practices, but both post-construction features within our developments. So the historic way that we have handled stormwater has been from a rate reduction. So when water goes off a parking lot and hits a ditch, it comes off much quicker, it doesn't soak into the ground. So we, per our code since 2002, 1999, somewhere in that range, we've done that by putting in dry detention basins or wet detention basins, okay? That's the ponds that you see in most developments. Again, that's a rate reduction. That does not reduce the volume of water, okay? It does not improve the water quality of the water, okay? Those two requirements, volume reduction and water quality reduction, is part of our MS4 permit. Now, we've never addressed that in our code. The only verbiage in our code that is alluded to that is the protection of waterways. So we've had these setbacks, 25-foot setbacks from creeks that you're not supposed to disturb. But the issue with that is we don't deed restrict them either. So the verbiage is in the code, but we don't deed restrict them. So it's not what we're understanding, that's not really a best management practice. So what do you do? That's what we're working through, is how do we come up with a solution to meet our minimum requirements that's acceptable to MoDNR and really EPA. So I tried hard there to give you just a real quick rundown of what's going on, but that's why our friends with DNR are here. They're going to kind of give you a quick rundown of what they found, and I hope, and if I need to chime in, just let me know. So, yeah, I do have it pulled up. And if you would just introduce yourself, and I can get this going, and I could click through it for you, so.
Awesome. Thank you for having us here tonight. We really do appreciate you guys taking this
Can
seriously.
you pull the microphone down a little bit? Thank
There you go.
Short.
There you go.
All right. So my name is Sarah Wright, and I am with the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. I'm in the operating permit section of the Water Protection Program out of Jefferson City. So we are going to talk to you tonight. I'm going to give you a little more background on the MS4 permit, what got us to this point. And then my colleague Jenna here with the St. Louis Regional Office, she did the actual last audit, so she's going to talk about that specifically. So we'll have Erin Heidoff with our enforcement unit, and she'll be speaking about the enforcement case. And then we also have Amber Foote over there, who is Jenna's supervisor. So you can go ahead, John.
Yeah.
Okay, so as he mentioned, this is for the MS4 permit. So MS4 stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. It's where you get the 4 S's in that. The municipal part of that is it has to be a public entity, in your case, a city. There's also counties, other universities, stuff like that, as long as it's publicly owned. So that was the first thing that got you guys into these regulations, is you are publicly owned, and Washington has a separate storm sewer system. What that means is all these outlets and inlets on your streets out here, your parking lots, all of that goes through a conveyance system, and it's going to go straight to the streams and the river, all of that, without getting treatment. There is no treatment. It's not going to a wastewater treatment plant. It just goes out there. So that's the separate part of the storm sewer system. That's part of your regulations. This came down from the EPA in 1999 for cities once they hit a certain threshold, because this is, the pollutant source here is urban stormwater runoff. Once the city hits 10,000, that's when the EPA decided that's going to be the threshold for permit designation here. So as John mentioned, that's when you got the permit. So the thing to remember here is it's urban stormwater runoff, which is caused by people. So people are your pollution source in this. It's going to be the breakdown of your asphalt roads. It's going to be the breakdown of your concrete sidewalks. It's going to be brake pads, and it's going to be tire residues, leaking oil, pet waste in yards, pesticides, fertilizers, even the heat that comes off of your black asphalt. These are all the pollutants that are getting into your streams. This is why we talk about those post-construction best management practices to help get those pollutants out before it goes into your streams to help protect that water quality. So all the big boring words up there kind of explain that the EPA set this all up through the Clean Water Act. So that's where this all lives, is in the Clean Water Act of the federal regulations. Here in Missouri, it's regulated through Missouri Clean Water Law. Missouri DNR is a designated authority. So the EPA has given us authority to use the Missouri Clean Water Law to regulate such things as this. It's the same thing we do for your wastewater treatment plant. It's under the same kind of big umbrella for that. We choose to do this through permits. So the City of Washington has MOR 04C065. That is your MS4 permit. Think of it the same as you would how your wastewater treatment facility has a permit with us, except there you have a wastewater treatment plant. Here, your whole city is what's causing this pollution, but it can also be what's solving the problem of this pollution too, and that's what the MS4 sets you up for. So as he mentioned, through this permit, we have the 6 MCMs, as we call them, the minimum control measures. We've got education outreach, public involvement, illicit discharge detection and elimination, construction site stormwater, post-construction, BMPs, and good housekeeping in municipal facilities. So those are our 6 big elements that we use in this permit here. And it's the same across the country. This is all, again, coming straight from Clean Water Act to Missouri Clean Water Law into these permits, and that's the permit you have. So from that permit, that's where Jenna came in, and she did that second audit on you guys.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
My name is Jenna Atkinson. I am the auditor that conducted the second audit back in a couple months ago. So I have on these slides the violations kind of listed pretty much how they were in the report, but I'm just going to run through them kind of in like basic terms, if you will. So the first MCM, as Sarah explained, is public education and outreach on stormwater impact. So I'm going to try and breeze through these because I know we're kind of on a time crunch. Let me know if you have questions or need me to slow down. So again, like John said, there are brochures and education efforts, but they're not being documented. During the first audit, the response to that was that there would be this electronic binder, and John kind of sent me the draft of that. It looks great if you guys are able to implement that and put that in there and update it as necessary. Some other areas that might be easy, kind of low-hanging fruit, as John said, was all of these parks and areas, you could put education signs out there and stuff like that. So that's MCM1, and that's basically what we kind of found there. I'm going to move on to the third one unless anybody has questions. No? Okay. So MCM3 is illicit discharge detection and elimination. That we didn't have any record or recording of this dry weather screening that John was discussing. That is a requirement. There is this GIS application we kind of saw. That looks great, but there is no use of it currently. If we're able to get that in use and put those checklists and all of those other things in there, that would be great, and we could get you guys rolling on compliance there. The training is important for office personnel and people of the public there. So we're going to move on to 4, if that's okay. 4 is construction site stormwater runoff control. That's your land disturbance. There was a checklist here as well, but again, we didn't see any documentation or record of it. There's no schedule of oversight or method for citizens to report concerns if there is an illicit discharge or there's sediment runoff from a site. There needs to be a way for the citizens of the city to report that to you, and then John or whoever can act on it accordingly. Again, there was no schedule for this oversight. During the oversight, the SWIP needs to be requested as well. So now we're going to move on to 5, which is post-construction stormwater management in new development and redevelopment areas. This is going to be the one that I think requires the most effort. Oh, thank you, I forgot to. So this, for lack of a better word, was the most lacking out of all of the MCMs, and it was also noted in the 2018 audit as well. So it's kind of pending and has been that way for a while, which is kind of why we're trying to address it and get it out there. There are currently 2 post-construction BMPs that we saw during the audit. One are the wild native medians, which I think are a good thing, and you could use that back on MCM1. You could put signage out there and kind of put that education out there and use it for multiple. You could double dip here. You could put them on 5 and 1. The other one was a basin in the park, Phoenix Park, which also great. It was tiered. There were multiple areas where the pollutants or sediment could settle and then discharge to the creek. That was not being inspected or maintained as per the permit. So once you have these post-constructions, they do need to be inspected and they do need to be maintained. But there is some kind of scheduling that you could work with in the permit, like 20% every year or something like that. I think that's all I have for 5, but again, this is the one I would like to highlight as the one that needs the most effort. And then 6 is your pollution prevention, good housekeeping for municipal operations. This is gonna be your salt storage and stuff like that, or your municipal yards where trucks and vehicles are stored. Again, with the training, there was no documented official training. That is a permit requirement. You need to train your municipal staff on what to do if their truck is leaking into a storm drain. Who do they notify? What do they do? What is the next step? We also viewed the municipal yards, and there was a lack of best management practices on site. So the permit talks about like programmatic BMPs, best management practices. There are also small physical BMPs that you can put on site, like a wattle in front of an inlet at a land disturbance or something like that. The municipal yards also have to have that. In addition to that, these need to be inspected as well and have record of that. So I know that was a lot of words, but that is all I have. Aaron can come up and talk about enforcement, if we're good.
Excuse me, who would do the training for our people?
The city.
Yeah, so I mean, we do have the expertise to do the training. I could probably handle some of that. We could also look out to third-party consultants to assist us with those things. I know there are various resources like online classes that our people can take, you know, maybe in a break room or at lunchtime or something like that. So again, I'm pretty confident we can overcome that. I think, again, that's a pretty easy thing to do. It's more of setting the program up and doing it. So I think we can achieve that one fairly easy.
Okay.
And tracking that is like, we have a sign-in sheet from
Yeah.
whatever date.
I'll give you an example of what we do now. I mean, if I see something like improper use of silt fence or, you know, something not being done, I'll just go to the job site and let the guys know and give them a little, you know, let the individuals know, give them a little rundown of why it's not correct and all those things. But those do not get documented. So again, it's not that we're not doing it. It's just a lack of getting out of the field, coming into the office, and administratively getting them documented. I think that's where we really lack.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
I get the fun topic. Everybody likes enforcement. I like enforcement, but that's what I do for a career. My name's Erin Heidoff, and I am the MS4 Program Compliance Coordinator in the Water Pollution Compliance and Enforcement section in Jefferson City. So I work with MS4s and wastewater treatment facilities, cities, mobile home parks, everything across the board in enforcement when they are in non-compliance with their permit requirements. And so if you guys don't already know this, I'm going to drop the bomb on you that Washington is in enforcement now. You guys were referred in, they were just referred. Yeah, November. Okay, so they were just referred, you were just referred, and you were assigned to a case manager in enforcement. That case manager, her name is Jessie Yates. I have her business card if you guys want that business card. But she's going to be kind of your navigator through the enforcement process. She's going to help you through each step and hopefully get you guys back into compliance sooner rather than later. So the issue is, at this point right now, is enforcement is kind of what you make of it. So it can be as easy or as difficult as you want it to be. And the more support that you give John, the easier it's actually going to be for getting guys through enforcement quickly. So what we do in enforcement is we take what the deficiencies are that you already saw with Jenna's presentation with the audit, and we work on those deficiencies to get you into compliance. And then we work on building the program from there. And then once we think that you are kind of got your feet under you and you can fly on your own, then we'll cut you loose. And then you have to maintain compliance and demonstrate that you can maintain compliance. The idea in enforcement is that we don't want to basically think that you're doing okay, and then you end up back on the enforcement desk of a case manager again. We don't ever want to see you again. We want these guys to see you again on a regular basis for your routine audits, but enforcement doesn't want to see you on a regular basis. So if you look at the slide back there behind you, that's enforcement in a nutshell. The goals are to resolve the violations, get you back into compliance, and achieve compliance long-term. We're going to do that through an abatement order on consent, and that's basically a legal consensual agreement between you and I that basically says, we're going to establish a schedule, we're going to commit to the schedule, and we're going to follow through with the schedule and make sure that we can actually get that done long-term and keep it in compliance. Now, Washington has been an established MS4 for quite a long time, since 2003. Like John had said that you guys became an MS4 in 2002, but you were actually designated as an MS4 with the 2003 permit. And it's a long time, actually, to be an MS4, but believe it or not, MS4s are relatively new in Missouri, so to speak. So there's a lot of learning. There's been a big learning curve with MS4s across the state. And also, just to be completely honest, with the Department of Natural Resources. MS4s were one of those things that it was a federal requirement, but nobody really knew how to comply with those federal requirements and the state requirements that were put in place. And just like any MS4 permit, MS4s were an iterative process for us too in the state as regulators. So we have changed up the regulatory requirements permit after permit after permit to make it easier for the regulated community, the permittees, to understand and be able to comply. Part of the problem that I think that we dealt with Washington was the same problem that we dealt with the majority of the MS4s that are out there. They had a permit, they knew they had to comply, but they didn't know exactly how to comply, and we didn't know how to guide them into how to comply. So all these audits were being done over the past several permit cycles, and many MS4s that had violations were left go because nobody knew what to do with them and how to fix them. The staff that were out here doing the audits didn't know how to guide them, and then when problems actually were really serious in past audits, they didn't get referred to enforcement for that extra bit of help. And that was really our fault because we did not know what to do with them. So that was the case here with Washington. There were past audits where major deficiencies were found in the program, the stormwater program, and basically a schedule was submitted that said, hey, we're working on these things, but then it wasn't followed up with. So Washington should have been referred years ago, actually, to enforcement, but you guys weren't. And so now the most current audit happened, and now we're working on actually fixing the problems by getting you under enforcement, getting you under a schedule that is most likely going to be roughly about 3 to 5 years to actually complete it. And then by the end of that time, hopefully you guys are going to have a really strong program. I know that John has a lot of good ideas. He has some really quite advanced ideas. We don't need to go that far just yet. We need to get something that's achievable first. We need to actually be able to be, I don't want to say simple, but achievable in order to get into compliance and then stay in compliance and then grow from there. So at this point, what Washington is looking at is a group effort. We really need everybody, all of you guys on the council, board, John, anybody that works with John, to work together to be able to actually achieve what we need to achieve to get you out of enforcement. We don't want you staying in enforcement longer than you have to. And I know you guys don't want to be in enforcement longer than you have to. But again, with enforcement comes the slap on the wrist. Now, the slap on the wrist is the penalty. If you looked up on the slide, you would see that there is an administrative penalty, and that's for long-term noncompliance. So this is a situation that is negotiable, so to speak. So the city's actions are all taken into consideration with the penalty that's assessed. It's being assessed right now, so it's still negotiable, so to speak, at the moment. And so every effort that you do, whether it's efforts in good faith, John's been doing a whole lot of emailing to us, letting us know things that he's trying to work on, things he's trying to implement, things he's trying to correct and improve. That's all going toward your credit in the negotiation room for the penalty. But your involvement is also incredibly important because he needs your support. So that's also taken into consideration whenever we're talking about the penalty here. So keep that in mind whenever John comes to you and says, hey, I need some support and some help doing this. I need to implement this into our stormwater program. Think about that when he actually comes to you with those requests. And then hopefully, everybody up here behind the bench is going to get an education on stormwater at the same time as John is sitting here trying to correct the program. So, in a nutshell, that's enforcement. Any questions? We are here to actually talk with you guys and help you answer any questions you got right now. So please, take advantage.
Some of those categories you had, the 5 or 6 areas.
Yeah.
And they all had a required action by the date below.
Yes.
I didn't see the date.
Yeah, there is no date because that's going to be part of the AOC right now. So the abatement order on consent that I had mentioned earlier, that's the legal agreement. We're going to establish a schedule for you that's an achievable schedule that'll give you enough time to actually put together some good, again, achievable BMPs, those best management practices that John had mentioned. We're going to give you a good time frame that you can actually use and actually get something in place that's going to stick. Not something that you're like, oh, this sounds really good, but it's not really going to work for you. We want something that's going to work for Washington to where you can actually stick with it for however long. So yeah, that's why it's going to be about 3 to 5 years.
I asked that. I didn't want to see John taken off in cuffs before we get the actual date. You know.
John's not being taken off in cuffs, no.
I mean, we
Oh,
joke about that, but it does
So be it.
appear as though, this is the first I've heard about this. And then now here we are
Yeah,
under referral.
yeah.
And now the newspaper's going to have the headline for the weekend. It's going to tell us that we're terrible.
Nope, you're not terrible. All this is a situation of past non-compliance that's been brought to your attention that now is going to get fixed. So this is a proactive kind of thing rather than a bad thing. Enforcement's not to punish. Enforcement is to get you guys back into compliance. That's it.
It didn't hurt quite so bad. I thought I had my hand slapped pretty hard there, so I was making sure.
Oh, no doubt. Enforcement is still a slap on the wrist, but at this point, because there's been a lot of turnover in the city over the years since you've become an MS4. Again, like I said, there was a whole lot going on where there were no answers for MS4s. So MS4s were coming to us. Now, Sarah and I, we took over our positions as MS4 coordinator. She's the audit and permits coordinator. I'm, like I said, the program compliance coordinator for MS4s. So prior to us taking over, there was a whole lot of confusion going on with MS4s. And many MS4s were reaching out to the department asking for guidance, asking for help, and not getting it because the department said, well, it's in your permit. No, it wasn't. The permit was incredibly vague. And that was part of what Sarah did when we did this last permit renewal. She revised the entire permit system, basically flipped it upside down. We separated the MS4 permits into 2 separate permits. One was for really well-established MS4s that were out there that have been like the MSDs that are out there, super established, knew their program in and out, that kind of thing. The other permit was more black and white. That permit was set up to essentially give those MS4s out there that were having a hard time understanding the requirements more guidance on how to comply and what they needed to do to comply with their MS4 permit. And that's the permit that you're under now. It's a new permit to you. So what we're basically doing now is taking what was confusion before and vague references before and fine-tuning that, really honing it in and actually developing a program at this point. And that program will comply with the new permit. Essentially, you take the requirements of the permit and make sure that they are implemented in your program and make sure that they're in your stormwater management plan for your program, you're in compliance.
It makes a lot more sense that I guess what I'm getting is that we're out of compliance.
You are out of
and we're-
compliance.
And not. But we didn't even know what compliance was.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
before you slap our hands, at least tell us what we're supposed to be doing.
But what I'm
first.
hearing is we just created a bunch of rules and came in and judged us to rules, and now all of a sudden, we didn't follow the rules, which are brand new.
Nope, the rules have always been there since 2003 when you got your first permit.
Okay.
Problem is that a lot of the MS4s that were out there that were looking at the rules and saying, I don't really understand this. And they would reach out to us and we would say, well,
You don't understand it either.
no, we, for the most part, did not give good guidance. The understanding was not necessarily there. The guidance was definitely not there. And so a lot of the MS4s that should have been referred before were not. And so now we're catching them in new audits with this new permit and saying, okay, we got to fix this issue now. So again, like I said, this is a situation where you're in enforcement, but it can either be a bad thing or it can be a good thing. We really want it to be a good thing. We want it to be a situation where you guys work with us closely, hand in hand, to make sure that you can actually get out on the other end of enforcement and be like, that was great. I learned so much about MS4s. Many people, they look at stormwater and they look at stormwater permits and they're like, this doesn't mean anything to me. This is rainwater. This is rain that falls down out of a cloud and it goes across the streets and the pavement and it runs into the storm sewer and it's gone. I don't need to think about it. But it holds exactly the same amount of weight as any wastewater permit. You guys have a wastewater treatment facility that you have to comply with the permit requirements. The same thing with the stormwater permit. The difference is that the stormwater permit allows you to do more creative implementation of the things that you put in place to comply with the requirements of the permit, whereas the wastewater permit is incredibly black and white. Everything is laid out for you. You have these permit requirements for these effluent limit parameters that your wastewater permit means you have to have a wastewater treatment plant that treats to this degree to where the effluent that you're discharging out into the receiving stream meets those limits or better. It's very simple, black and white. The stormwater permit, on the other hand, basically says, okay guys, guess what? You can actually implement all kinds of interesting, crazy things if you want to, that are going to achieve the same goals of cleaning up the stormwater that's running off the surfaces in your city streets and parking lots and whatnot, and then eventually making it to the creeks, just like wastewater would. But instead of having a wastewater treatment plant, instead the entire city is a stormwater treatment plant. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you're implementing measures where you're cleaning up the stormwater before it reaches the stream, just like the wastewater treatment plant cleans up the wastewater before it reaches the stream.
So when do you foresee that date being set so that we, for instance, what we can do, if the date puts John in a situation where we need to get him some help?
That starts now. That absolutely starts now.
Well, then John will let us know what he needs. But what I'm getting at is, I think he would also need to know a date so that he can judge what he's going to need to get these finished
Yes.
on time.
Over the next few weeks, while John's going to be working with Jessie Yates, our case manager that's assigned to this, and she's very capable. She's a very good case manager, unfortunately. We were scheduled to be on the last city council meeting on the 7th, but we got bumped off of that schedule. She was going to be here for that, but she's out of town this week, so she missed coming to the council meeting. So my apologies for her.
We've
But-
established a line of communication already.
Yes.
And I've worked with Jesse in the past on
Yes.
some other things, so I'm familiar.
Yeah, they're going to be working out that schedule. They're going to be setting what's achievable. Basically, he's going to have some say in how much time he thinks he needs, and then Jesse will put that in writing. Yep. So he'll be able to establish his own deadlines. We have a pretty good idea from other MS4s that have been in enforcement, and trust me, this is not the first MS4 in enforcement, and this will not be the last MS4 in enforcement. But we have a pretty good idea of what it takes to actually get MS4s into compliance, depending on what they're deficient in the first place. We have some MS4s in enforcement that are so deficient, they have no program to even speak of. You guys are ahead of the game. You do have a program. You just have a program with holes in it, that's all. We need to kind of patch those holes and get something put in place that's actually going to be long-term. One of those things is establishing strong ordinances. We've already been working with John on making sure that those ordinances are being developed. And those ordinances are probably one of the longest time-consuming things in the entire enforcement time frame. So that 3 to 5 years is including the time it's going to take to actually draft your ordinances, get them beefed up, and then get them passed and adopted in.
So the referral notice of violation October 11th of 2022, did that come from an individual? Did it come from an audit process, or someone contacted DNR that they seen something happen in Washington?
There's a routine audit that was done, and then after the audit was done, there was just too many deficiencies on top of past deficiencies, and so that went into the referral process, kind of kicked it over into, yeah, you're going to need a long time to actually get these things done. So the region office, Jenna over here, she only has up to a year maximum. It's supposed to be about 180 days, which obviously is not that much time when you're talking MS4s, but they have up to a year maximum to be able to work with MS4s or other permitted facilities to get them into compliance before they have to refer. So based on the history that we know of with MS4s and the deficiencies that Washington has, we knew that you were going to take much longer than a year to actually be able to get into compliance. So that just immediately brought it up to, yeah, we're going to have to talk about referral here. This is a referral situation. Not because you guys refuse to do the work, not because you refuse to actually take this seriously, but because you need the time, and the time actually protects you. So that abatement order on consent that I was talking about, that is actually a protective measure to where if anybody else starts poking around and saying, hey, Washington, you're in noncompliance. What the heck, man? You're polluting our streams, such as EPA sniffing around, or potentially third-party environmental groups sniffing around saying, what the heck? So that AOC that's going to be established with that schedule basically says, Washington knows that they've got a problem with their program. They're working on it with us. They have this agreement with this schedule that's included in it, and they're sticking to their schedule. So essentially it works to protect you guys through that entire period of time, knowing that it's going to take a while, much longer than a year, in order to get all that stuff put together and actually established and implemented in your program. Any other questions? This is good. This is excellent questions and conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. No, it really is. Truly, it really
I'm
is.
looking at October 11th, I'm hearing November 7th, and I'm sitting here on November 21st and just hearing about it. That's what's sinking in on me.
I think John has done a good job of letting you know up to this point. This is the first time we've actually said, and I advise John, we could need to have DNR come in, do a presentation, show what's needed. John invited the construction world. You see a lot of the people out there tonight. They've got to be our partners with this as well, with the city.
Absolutely.
And they're going to have to go ahead and continue to be that. But this is just the first time we've actually put it down as an agenda item, say this is what we're dealing with.
Yeah. This is something that has been around for a while, and we know this because we've been working with John longer than just this past audit. We've been talking to John for years, and John has been doing his best to try to actually rectify some of these things on his own, but John can't do this alone. He really can't. He does need assistance. I tell people that have MS4s that are tiny little MS4s, itty-bitty, tiny MS4s that become MS4s specifically because they have the unfortunate circumstance of being outside a major city. Okay, so major cities, 10,000 population or greater, becomes an MS4. You got these itty-bitty little municipalities that are on the outsides of these urban areas that become an MS4, and they have to live up to the exact same requirements that those big MS4s have to actually live up to. And so we tell them, okay, so who's helping you with your stormwater? Who's your stormwater coordinator? And they say, well, me. And it's like, wait a minute, just you? Yeah, just me? No, that's not the way it works. Absolutely not. Everybody in this room, everybody in this city is involved in stormwater. Stormwater touches everybody here. So there's not a single person that is in this city, in this room, anywhere in this country, in fact, that doesn't touch stormwater in some way. And so when John says to us, oh, well, yeah, I'm a one-man show. I run the MS4 program. Absolutely not. He can't do it by himself. There's too many components in MS4 to be able to do it all by himself, which is one of the reasons why he can't keep up with it right now. He's struggling to actually implement a lot of the stuff that we're supposed to be doing in Washington, but we're not doing because he doesn't have the ability to manage everything. He wears a number of hats. So he needs to have some help. Some of that help could come from you. Some of it comes from the people that are out there in the field, construction workers, that kind of thing. Anybody, even police officers and fire staff, those guys can also help. And that comes with education. The more people you educate, the more people you educate out there, these guys back here behind me, the more people that are educated, the better your program's gonna be, the stronger your program's gonna be, and the more compliance you're gonna have with your program. Any other thoughts, questions?
I would, excuse me, I'm sorry. I would just also add real quick, the referral notice, we had the obviously, the audit was late summer. We received the notice of violation on October 11th. It took time to process through that and to identify really what we were deficient on. So I wanted to ensure that we had the foundation. I mean, the program was lacking from day one. So we had to start from basically scratch. And as we went through that, I was in constant communication with DNR from October 11th to this meeting right now to try to get out ahead of some of the questions that I thought you would be answering, or that you'd have to ask, to the point of, looking at ways how it doesn't quite as economically affect the construction market. Is there any outside-the-box thinking? Right now, we have an issue with a lot of these detention basins that I've talked about, which do not address water quality, that are not being maintained right now because they're not under ownership or jurisdiction of the city. So I was looking at ways to, how do we address that problem, which is something we all, I think, understand. That's something that's happened forever. And in addition to address this issue at the same time. Can those things be thought outside the box to where those do become under jurisdiction of the city so we maybe maintain them? Costs money, right? So trying to figure out how that would work. So we've been, my staff, it's not just me, but the staff has been in constant communication with them over this timeline in preparation for this meeting. I know we have another agenda item coming up, but the native plantings, those are things that we talk about a lot, and I know aren't always, from different perspectives, aren't positive there. But we've talked about those things, and they recognize that as part of this program. And that's why in those conversations that I tend to just give an alternate perspective of why those things are important. So to answer your question, I think, Councilman Bear, I apologize. But I just, we've been doing that in order for preparation of this, just to make sure that we were prepared, because I have to get them a letter back of what we're going to be doing. And we've been working on that now for basically a month to 6 weeks, getting get things going and trying to just get logistics on, can I get my people in line to see what I need from a resource perspective? I mean, that's where I'm at right now. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah,
just so you know.
Yeah, John has a lot of good ideas in his head, but we want to set you up for success when you're in enforcement. So all of his ideas, we're going to make sure that they are ideas that we believe that you can comply with. So you have to be able to walk before you can run. So we're going to work with him closely to be able to make sure that Washington has something put together that is going to be a situation where, 10 years down the road and 2 permit cycles, you guys can then start to look at really expanding your program, that kind of thing. Right now, we need you to get a program in place that you can actually achieve and keep going with, and then once you're comfortable with all that and you have a good, strong program, then you can start look at other bigger fish.
Is there other municipalities that we should look at or should look at as that are not in compliance? We don't want to be like them, but we want to be like them.
Yeah. Let's not look at the ones that are not in compliance. We can look at,
we want to refer those so you guys go to their meetings next month instead of this one.
We invited them. Those other communities aren't even in target to.
Well, we're going to get them there, that's for sure. But I mean, yeah, so, okay, all kidding aside, not the negatives, but the positives. I mean, what are we supposed to be looking for?
Absolutely, that's a great question. I would look to your neighbors across the river up in St. Charles County. You have a lot of programs up there that were established about the same time, but they took the permits and they ran with them a little bit more, so they have many years of experience running their programs right now. And so I think looking up there, they have St. Charles City, Wentzville has an amazingly strong program. St. Peter's has a very strong program. Look to some of those and see how they have theirs set up. Yeah, they are. They're very, very open to that. They actually have kind of like a roundtable discussion every quarter, and I'd be more than willing to reach out to them to see if anybody wants to go out there and talk with them. I think you have talked
I've
to some
reached
of
out.
them
I
before,
have.
so, yeah. That was my recommendation.
Okay.
Sounds like we have a lot of work to do, you guys, but let's support
Thank you
John.
guys for coming.
Yes.
Thank you all.
I will say that, this seems like we're kind of a thorn in your side at this point, and that's not our goal. Some of these municipalities that have developed their programs, they're very excited to share it, and they want to brag about it. So, we think it's a great idea for you guys to touch base with them and find out what's worked, what hasn't worked. And this will be something that, this is something that you guys can be proud of in the future, hopefully. Just beautify your city more, so. that's all I got.
Well, a lot of people here in Washington fish the river, and I love catfish, and I don't like it when they taste like oil.
Okay.
We don't need an action item tonight.
No.
It was just merely for informational purposes and discussion. And again, thank you guys for coming
you.
out. Appreciate it. We'll obviously be in touch more, so.
Thank you, ladies.
Highway 100 medians?
Okay, that's fine. We'll go ahead and start. The next one that we've got, sorry, Sherry, I'm just going to jump right in. Is the Highway 100 median discussion. And so this kind of played a little bit, as they mentioned in their compliance, to give you an idea. And that's where John, I know, is in the past, told you that this is part of the steps. This is like, the medians were actually a positive thing for the city with regards to Highway 100, and we've heard that before from, maybe you don't hear that necessarily from the people that call you, that don't like the plantings that are out there, but we are telling you that this is part of the thing that makes them happy, makes them able to go ahead, just a stepping stone. So Wayne has got a presentation. If you'll recall, we had the meeting where we had a proposal for you to go ahead and have maintenance done from a third party to go ahead. Since that time, the council did not want to act on that night, and so we formed a committee over the summer. I was going to get you a report on this a couple of months ago. We were ready, but however, with budget, and then we had a couple of huge hearings, and so it was just like, okay, when can we go ahead and get this? And so tonight is finally the night. So with that, I'll turn it over to Wayne.
Good evening, council. So John and I have been working on this since May, well, before that, but the committee's been working on it since May. And so I guess I'll try to get through this as fast as I can, because I'm sure you'll have some questions afterwards. Kind of how did we get to this point? Some of this, some of you all may know this, some of you may not. Medians were put in, out to bid in 2012 and then constructed in 2013. So this slide here, if you look, you got September 2008, there's nothing, and then 13, they're being constructed, and then 15 through 21, you can see the various stages of growth there. And so the city put in $155,000. The total project was $775,000, and that was a grant that was received through
MoDOT STP
Yep.
program.
Some of the design details from my predecessor, you can see an email that was sent to administration here on potentially what it could cost. There's a lot of variables in this email. He even mentions it right off the bat. And there's different, what people, I guess, like to see, the level of maintenance, I should say. What people like to see versus what the city can do, has manpower to do, things like that. And the other thing that I don't think was really taken into consideration was the surrounding weed pressure from the nearby fields. You'll hear a lot of people say, well, why can't we have medians that look like the ones on 109. And those medians aren't right across from open fields with Johnson grass and things like that growing in them. So we battle that constantly. In this email, it talks about mode 1, 2, 3, and 4. My predecessor says we're likely to start out in mode 2 and then move to 3 throughout the rest of the life cycle of the medians. Really, we're probably in between 2 and 3 right now and have been for a while, like 2.5. And that all is associated with costs. And so costs to run the median, this is what it costs the city, my staff to maintain them. You can see the numbers there. So overall, $11,630. Some of those tasks are, like we mulch and cut back, mulch twice a year, cut back once, sprayed 1 to 2 times a month, depending on how bad they are, and how quickly we can drop other things and get out there. Lane drops and then replacement plants. There is an irrigation system out there. It was installed when the medians were installed, mainly from my understanding was to get the plants off the ground and growing. And so over the years, it's been it's been let go. We don't use it. We haven't used it in 2 or 3 years now. And so you can see an additional cost to run. That's if the irrigation was running perfectly. There's a startup cost, a close down cost, and then if it breaks anytime in between. Next slide. So in May, you'll recall I was up here. I bid out the maintenance of the medians. We had a proposal, and you'll see these numbers in the next slide, to maintain the medians for a year. It was $20,800. Council tabled that, asked us to form a committee. That's why we're here. You'll see where the committee's gone since May. On the next slide here, next slide or two. But the committee members are these people listed here. We got business owners, park board members, urban forestry members, city council, obviously, and then city staff. And we have met, we met on June 1st and then July 26th this year. And so potential solutions. Solution number 1 is really the same solution I came up with, or we came up with back in May. Keep what's in place, approve the appearance and maintenance via contractor. This would eliminate city staff, any risk to city staff being out there and possibly being injured, whether it be by a car or even lifting heavy objects. I did have someone who messed up his shoulder pretty bad, throwing a cone up on a truck out there. And then it would allow us to do other things in the city, maintain parks and things like that. This last fiscal year, John had budgeted $30,000 for this project through the Stormwater Fund. Like I said, we had a bid for $20,800. It was a 5-year contract. And then May 2nd, I was here, and that was tabled, and a committee was formed. Since the committee's been formed, we've come up with 3 other additional solutions that John has worked very hard, kind of some ideas that we've been running by the committee. Solution number 2, you'll see pouring concrete. That cost was just an estimate between $250,000 and $500,000. That would be pour the entire thing in concrete, no vegetation there. There would be a possible potential federal payback, and John, jump in if you ever need to. Or solution 3, then combination of pavers and natives. And so in West County, off Manchester, you'll see some medians out there. I think we have a picture in a minute, next slide, where they're brick pavers or pervious pavers in the medians and no plantings, or they may have a planter with some plants, flowers in it. That cost, potential cost, estimated $250,000, and then possibly $10,000 a year to maintain. And then solution 4, turf grass and non-natives. So that would be broken up into sections, I believe. Different sections, so you might have a section of tall grasses, and it might be, instead of what we have out there now, which is a variety of seed mix, and it kind of just all grows together and does its thing, spreads. A lot of places now we've seen the trend is to have like a separate section, so one section of grasses, but it might be a clump of grass. So clump here, like staggered. Very well-defined clumps of grass with mulch in between, easy to identify, easy to spray weeds out of, things like that. And there could be a section of gravel or a section of pervious pavers and different plantings, roses, you name it, bushes down the line.
I would just add real quick, when our medians were designed in the late 2010s, the concept of natives was to put a lot of different plants in a smaller section. So for example, you would have your grasses mixed in with your native forbs, okay? And in that, you get this mashup, basically, of a lot of different things. Over time, as you approached, mid 2010s, late 2010s, the industry kind of recognized that having more of like a monoculture assists with maintenance. So where you would just have grasses, native grasses potentially, in more of a clump type situation as a monoculture in one area. So you wouldn't have, for example, I know I'm not a plant guy, but you would have like your purple flowers, cone flowers that you all see there in late August. Right now, those are mixed in right next to some grasses. Well, over time, those start to mesh together, right? You'd have these clumped in areas. And so the design of that's kind of changed. What we have now is that old style, I guess, of landscape architecture. And if you actually go to the plans by CMT, you can clearly see it. It was plan here, different plan here, different plan here, different plan here, where now what you see is, again, a lot more monoculture with those plants. So in there, I know it's just color-coded there, and we can all see that, but all that we did there was try to identify, in those medians, there are various curbs that separate out the areas every 20 foot, every 40 foot. They're there. You don't see them because they're covered with mulch, but they exist. So what we did there is we tried to identify off the design plans where the obvious spots would be to where you would have these clumpings, basically. So red, I just did red because brick pavers, just picking something. Yellow would be maybe your color, green would be your grasses. Now, do you see how you don't mix those together? The reason for that is even your maintenance people are looking at 5 different types of plants and have no idea what they're looking at. Yeah. So it makes it very difficult to maintain them. That's what you have today. That solution would solve that, okay? With that, though, you're tearing out what you have and you're putting something new in. So, there's a cost there, a capital cost, a front cost there. So just so you know, why did that happen? Oh, that's why it happened. So. Here, I got
And
you.
so, yeah, you saw the brick pavers there that I referred to earlier in that median on Clarkson. And so I went through the 4 possible solutions that the committee came up with. And then we've had recently a possible, I guess maybe 5th solution. We've had a potential service group come to me, reach out to me and ask if they might be able to sponsor a median. And when they say sponsor, they mean pay for the maintenance of it through a contractor. Whether that's through the city or how that's exactly done is not really to be hashed out here right now. But what they're wanting is to have some kind of sign in the median. And so John has been talking to MoDOT, and we're talking about like an so here's your adopt a highway sign. It's right across the street here. It's not pictured. To pick up the litter off the street. And John asked MoDOT if we could come up with a solution where we place one of those signs or signs similar to that in the middle of the median showing that this potential service group is taking care of maintaining that median. And so they seem open to that idea, right, John?
Yeah, they do seem open. And what you get out of that with our previous discussion is you get public education. It's right there on an Adopt a Highway sign. You get public involvement because the service group is doing it. And then you also get your post-construction BMP that we just discussed all in one sign on 4 medians along the highway. So again, those are the outside-the-box concepts that we're trying to put forth, all basically, hopefully, at a more aesthetically pleasing situation and less maintenance and cost on the general, the stormwater fund.
And these ladies are all nodding as you say that, so that's good.
I haven't shared that with them. That's new. So see, that helps. Now when we talk, they can buy me more time.
And so,
I don't even know they're nodding, but they are, and I can tell it.
if this is acceptable and takes off, there's potential, so maybe one group does a median, someone else does another one, and
I would also add that those MoDOT adopt the highway signs, MoDOT came back to me and said that that's the smallest priority on their list, but I was going to ask our friends at DNR to write a nice letter to them to get them to give us the signs, so we're going to work on that too. So,
The
With this-
partnership continues.
Would this group, would the group go by, let's say we wanted to do the clumping, what you were talking about, would that be into this instead of keeping it like it is?
I don't know if we discussed, we had just a real quick talk about that. I don't think it got into the details about how you are going to do this capital improvement. I think there initially was to discuss just some general maintenance of what we already have. I do think there are some areas there, like you could see kind of in the middle of that one. That's a monoculture. There's not much different there. It's all kind of the same. So you're going to be able to identify spots that you're not going to have to rip out and start over.
And Darren, you,
So it's going to be a mix,
prices you had up there for the various types of things we could do, the options, that I assume was for the entire
yes.
run.
It was.
Correct.
So a group wouldn't have to
Oh, correct.
necessarily pick up that whole thing. We could get several groups and each take a section or something.
Yes, yeah, and that number there, the 20,800, that was for the entire, all the medians.
For 1 year.
Per year, yeah.
So Councilman Wessels, what we could do is we would then go out to bid rather than as a lump sum project. We'd go out to bid with 4 line items, median A, B, C, and D. We would know what those 4 line items are. Somebody could take one, get their nice sign, get their public involvement. Then we'd have the other group come do it, and then we have the other group, and then basically we reach 80% of the community via service groups on our public education.
And so any additional questions?
Have we ever inquired to see if we were to do something different down there, that we were gonna be in violation of?
Yeah. As far as, so what I did was I reached out to MoDOT, because again, it was a MoDOT administered grant through the Federal Highway Administration and East-West Gateway. If we were to go in and make some wholesale changes, removing the because it was a beautification grant at the time, we have latitude. We can change what that beautification agreement looks like. I think I need to get MoDOT approval on that because it's in the actual grant. We'd have to submit a landscape plan. They'd have to approve it. They're aware of it. I don't think that's a hard thing to do. If you went in there and you, again, worst case, poured it in concrete, worst case from that perspective, there is the potential, it's a higher potential. How high of a potential is it? Probably not very high, but that there would be some federal clawbacks and you have to pay some of the grant money back. Now, I've asked them, what triggers that? Well, we don't know. Exactly. That's what I figured. They just don't know, but
Because they probably don't have a history of that.
No.
There's not been situations where communities have said,
There's no
you know
way to
what,
tell
we
you."
changed our mind after 5 years and we're going to go back the way it was.
What I tried to do is I said, if we did that, and if we poured it in stamped concrete, just let's figure that out. Again, that doesn't meet those other perspectives on the environmental side, but it meets one perspective of, stamped concrete. Does that still meet the beautification requirements of MoDOT? I can't, they will not tell me you're risking $50,000. They will not do that. So, and we're not going to be looking for that. It's just, I can't tell you that. I don't know.
Okay.
One of the things we discussed in committee too was to go about this in exactly that way, where you split it into the 4 medians and start with one and get a feeling as to what do people think of it? Do you want to change the next one to do a little bit more of this and a little less of that? And that's one of the things we talked about originally. And just to be clear, when we talk about service organizations, we're not talking about Lions members out there with clippers.
No,
this is a dangerous place to be cleaning this stuff up. So this
No, we
is
cannot. We've had, I think, we've been approached in the past about, obviously we've got groups that go around and beautify our park system, beautify this campus right here. And, they're too high a risk, obviously, for insurance purposes, for them to be out there, so.
right.
And I would also add a little bit there. You see that December 2015 photo? You see the dormant plants there? So one of the things that that we've completed, and Wayne, we've done a good job, is we've got in there for the first time prior to Thanksgiving that I could remember and got them basically a haircut going in the wintertime. That eliminates that, which is a good thing. It's also a good thing too, because the seeds out of that don't hit the soil. So you don't have to deal with this brushy kind of look, because we actually went in there and collected them. Okay, that's a huge deal.
Right, but in 15, there were a little less smaller growings and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Now in 2022,
Yeah.
it was here,
Yeah, you
and
can
now we
see
cut those
even-
back.
Yeah, you can see it.
And
there.
you'll see that-
Go from there to there.
Right. I think a good thing, I mean, the last time we had the conversation, we actually didn't get out there and maintain them. We got them right before the fair, I believe.
Yeah, the last
Right
one,
after.
yeah.
And there was a pretty big, there was a pretty big difference between the two just by doing 3 days worth of maintenance.
Yeah, we did the one between Walmart and Burger Park right after the fair, or right before the fair. And it's always by far the worst one because of all the fields next to it, surrounding it with Johnson grass and everything like that. And so it was, after we completed it, was noticeably better. At least we noticed anyway.
So is your plan now to have the committee choose one of those options and then bring that back?
I
to
think,
us, or-
well, if I can, I think the committee chose at that time to go ahead and use one of the medians that we could easily go ahead and maybe incorporate some additional plantings, like John said, that were in a mono,
This was
area.
kind of what we talked about in the
Yeah,
committee, if
something
I
like what
recall.
John, what's that drawing right there. Do one of those, enter into a maintenance contract that we approached you with earlier was it earlier this year?
May, yeah.
Yeah, May. And between the professional maintenance of it, sprucing up of maybe one of those medians, the idea was, and then see what that looks like after a year and see if that is more to keep, I guess, some of the concerns or some of the expressions that you guys have received as council members from the general public.
And at the same time,
And that would be, and I apologize, but that would be probably the most cost-effective route that we could do, rather than some of those other options that you see where you're throwing more money at a situation. I know that there was a lot of concerns when this was brought to you in May about the maintenance, and it was $100,000. Well, that was over 5 years if we did that entire contract. I did ask Wayne at that time, and we did get they just increased the number by 10% a year if we just did a 2-year contract, and it was more like $22,000, $23,000. So still, I still think that that's your best cost-effective option to go ahead and do, to go ahead and have those contracted out and have that, and especially if we're able to go ahead and get sponsorships from some service clubs to help in the cost.
that's what I was gonna say. If if you're looking at 20,000, just ballpark figure a year, and you get 4 or 5 service groups, if we can, and I don't think that would be crazy, too far out there.
I don't know that you're gonna get 4 or 5 already, but we're very happy with one if they decide to go ahead and move forward.
You could do one as a pilot.
There you go.
I think
That's-
they would be happy to see their group getting advertised from people coming into town in that very, that
That's
strip
part of
coming
it.
in,
But they're gonna want the plantings they want in that median.
They understand that there's limitations that we have with it.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah,
I mean,
through
there's,
MoDOT.
obviously, you guys still have to go ahead and approve. I mean, if they come back with plantings that are gonna be very hard to go ahead and maintain and cost you more to go ahead and maintain, cost you more to put in, et cetera, well, it has to go through you.
Yeah, and there's a reason why you don't see certain flowers out there and things like that, because they can't tolerate either the heat or the dryness or the winter, the salt and things like that from there's just a lot of different plants you can put out there, but not
I think
every.
you saw in option 4, you're talking about $40,000 a year possibly to go ahead and maintain. And that's when you start getting into those plants that you're really, I mean, I don't think that's not what we wanted to bring to you.
Anything else?
Questions, guys? Okay.
Thanks.
Wayne.
Need a
Motion to
motion to
adjourn.
adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Matkey, second by Holtmeyer. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Workshop is adjourned. We'll start the next meeting in a few minutes.
figure you're fatter than me.
You're good.
Regular meeting of, regular meeting of Washington, Missouri City Council, Monday, November 21st, 2022, 7:17 PM. Bayer.
Here.
Briggs.
Here.
Coulter.
Here.
Hydrich.
Here.
Holtmeyer.
Here.
Patke.
Here.
Reed.
Yes.
Wessels.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, need a motion to approve the minutes.
Make a motion.
Second.
Holtmeyer, second by Hydrich. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Approval and adjustment of agenda, including consent agenda. You have the change order number 2 for the 2022 overlay project.
Need another motion.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Hydrich, second by Holtmeyer. Any questions? Any questions before we do this about the overlay? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nothing. Motion passes.
Priority items, mayor's presentations, appointments and reappointments, police department reappointments.
Chip?
Good evening, council. Before you have two veteran officers that are up for reappointment, Sergeant Mike Grissom and Detective Mike Wisbaum. They're both doing a great job, and I recommend them for reappointment.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Hydrich, second by Patke. Discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
Public hearings, special use permit, 1104 Jefferson Street, short-term rental. This is tabled, so I just need a motion to accept it.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Patke, second by Hydrich. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Rezoning from R1B single family to C1 general commercial.
Sal.
All right, good evening. Your first public hearing tonight is a request to rezone 906 and 908 Jefferson Street, both of these parcels here. And actually, if you remember, the property to the south was actually one that was condemned about 4 or 5 years ago. We purchased, tore it down, and sold to Cowboy Holdings, who then purchased the property to the north. And then now it's their wish is to turn the home to the north into an office. I believe a real estate office is what they said, and then turn the vacant lot to the south into a parking lot. So that is obviously an old aerial. That lot to the south has been demolished. And you can see here, it is zoned R1A, single-family residential, and so in order to go commercial, they have to get it rezoned. What we recommended was to match the zoning to the north. That striped red is C1, what we call light commercial or neighborhood commercial. It allows for retail and office uses that are meant to be adjacent to residential. And obviously Jefferson Street, especially in this area, has a lot of mixed uses. You can see the commercial and the uses directly adjacent and across the street. So staff recommended approval, and then last week at Planning and Zoning, it passed unanimously with no opposition voiced at the meeting.
Sal, remind me, what is the R1B?
It's single-family residential with minimum lot sizes of 6,000 square feet.
Okay, so the 1A, 1B is just lot size?
Yes, yep.
I got you.
Other questions? Do we need a motion to accept this in the minute?
You need to open up and take comments from the public first.
Okay. Comments from the public? Okay.
Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Patke, second by Coulter.
No, Holtmeyer.
Or Holtmeyer, I'm sorry. Sorry, Joe. Any more discussion, guys? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion approved.
An ordinance rezoning 906 and 908 Jefferson Street from R1B Single Family Residential to C1 General Commercial in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Patke.
Introduced by Patke. Discussion? Okay.
An ordinance rezoning 906 and 908 Jefferson Street from R1B Single Family Residential to C1 General Commercial in the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Patke?
Yes.
Heydrich?
Aye.
Briggs?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Bear?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Wessels?
Could I ask real quick, this is the one that had the split vote, and what? No.
No.
Okay, all right, aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Okay, by your vote, the ordinance passes. D.
Special use permit 609 West 7th Street, short-term rental.
This one? Okay. Introduced by
No, this is a public hearing.
Holtmeyer.
public hearing.
No, it's,
Okay.
No, it's a here.
let Sal
public
go
hearing.
ahead and give your.
Yes.
Sorry, Sal, go ahead.
All right, your second public hearing tonight is a special use permit request for short-term lodging. This property located on 7th Street, you can see just west of 7th and Stafford, and you can see in the aerial here, it does have driveway access. It appears to have alley access to the rear. That is an existing right-of-way. However, it is not an improved right-of-way, so it doesn't actually have rear access. But it does have, in staff's opinion, ample parking for what the applicant put in their application and testified at planning and zoning. They have a 2-car garage, 2 car spaces in the driveway, and can fit 1 on the street. And then they testified that it would be a household for 6 to 8 people. As we often say on our short-term lodging, we've had a number of these come forward this year. They are primarily residential in nature and allow for 30 days or less in lodging. And with our current ordinances in place for noise violations and nuisances and parking violations that can be implemented for long-term or short-term, we do recommend approval of this. This did go to planning and zoning last week, and it passed a vote 5-2.
Could you tell us what the objections were?
There were two, there were 2 neighbors here tonight. I'm sure they'd be able to speak. And I think there wasn't really much discussion. Mark was there, but I think just the 2 no votes were because it wasn't unanimous in the neighborhood, if I'm interpreting that. Yeah.
I'll go with that.
So explain the short and the long term again, because the long term constitutes more than 30 days?
Yeah,
But that's different than what we passed before.
Yeah, we don't have to approve long-term. Anything over 30 days, anyone can do that now. They just have to get
It's
an
just like
occupancy
renting a
inspection.
house.
Yeah.
They
and
wouldn't
then
have to
our
go through this.
Yeah.
It was long-term.
And our code just defines short-term lodging, anything less than 30 days.
Is the house rented right now?
The applicant will be able to answer that.
Okay.
I'm not actually sure.
Well, we'll
Anything
get
else
just,
for me?
Yeah, Sal, is this coming up,
Oh, I didn't,
The-
I'm sorry, I didn't go to
the
that.
company that we hired to find some of these short-term rentals that were using them and not?
Yep.
Is that working out, or is it we?
It's still, so that takes a little while to implement because we have to give them all of our data. We just had a meeting, another one with them last week. It won't be live until after the first of the year.
Okay.
On that, but I mean, the ones who are coming in legally, like the applicant, we're already able to monitor. That software is to catch the ones who are doing it illegally.
Yeah, that's,
And then to level the playing field in taxes. Sorry, I meant to go to the next slide. But the property is R1B. It is just outside. You can see that tan is the R2 overlay. And I apologize, my laser pointer's not working, but the tan is the R2 overlay. It does allow for single and 2 family. You can see directly to the south, there is apartments in the area, so they do kind of already have the rental nature. And then to the north, you can see the 3 yellow dots are short-term lodging in the vicinity that we have approved, so. It is fairly close to walkable facilities with the new sidewalks on Stafford. Yeah, new, in a couple years.
Other questions, you guys? Okay, thanks, Sal. Public hearing?
Hi, I'm Tamara Bird. My husband and I are the ones who purchased the property.
Can you pull down the microphone a little bit?
Sure.
Thanks.
Better? Yes. Okay. My name is Tamara Bird, and my husband and I purchased this property on November 9th. And I know my husband was here at Planning and Zoning last week, but our goal definitely was to create a space that would be conducive to families and certainly not parties and noise. You know, we have friends in Washington who have said there's not a lot of hotel lodging and things like that. And we thought, man, it's such a cool community. And we would like to spend more time here with our kids. And so it's for that reason and for being able to have an investment property. This is be our very first real estate investment property. And so we are open to, I know that our neighbors, I'm sorry, I didn't know that was you. But we are certainly open to learning and being, we want to be good neighbors. And so whatever is going to help make the neighbors around us feel comfortable and safe and like their community is not being, or their environment is not being violated is important, very important to us, for sure.
What's the current use on the house now?
So we just bought it. We closed on November 9th. So right now, all we're doing is repainting, putting new flooring in, and just kind of handiwork, making sure that there aren't things that would be risky to people, like some electrical things that wouldn't be risky.
Your intention is not to live in the house itself?
Oh, no. If it was, when we visit, it will just be to visit as a getaway from where we live in O'Fallon, Missouri.
Okay.
And like we told your husband at planning and zoning, that's one of the most important things, to get to know your neighbors, and so everybody's comfortable and everybody knows what's going on.
Yes.
It's a good move.
Okay, absolutely.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to comment?
Hi, my name is Leslie Thomason Wedding. I got married in May.
Leslie, can you state your address?
Oh, sorry, 617 West 7th. The address, 617 West 7th. He's laughing. Last week, he said the wrong address, that's why he's making a joke. Anyway, we had, where they had purchased that home, we had neighbors that lived there for 15 years. We saw they were moving, and we were excited. We thought we were going to get new neighbors, and then we found out they were going to turn it into a Airbnb vacation rental, which was kind of a shock, because as you can see, we don't really live in downtown Washington. We're on the outskirts, and everywhere around there is residential. It just kind of took me by surprise that someone would want to put a rental there. Yes, we have apartments across the street, but as you can see, well, I don't know if you can see, but there's parking behind there. So they never take up space in the city streets. The apartment dwellers don't. And most of them are long-term apartment, that they've lived there a long time. The concerns that I have, I thought of one that I didn't think of last week. Who is the one that's going to be responsible for screening the renters that come, that, put them through CaseNet or make sure they're not, on pedophiles or on a convicted list? I mean, because, it is residential, which is different from a hotel where, you don't screen every person because they're not near someone's home where they live, where they keep their, their belongings. So that was one thing that came to mind. Who's the one that's going to screen every person that wants to rent that home right next to our home? And then the second thing was, I had explained last time, yes, it's a 2-car driveway and a 2-car garage. However, their driveway's on a slope, and the residents that lived there for many years before would always, when they'd had a kid come home from school, they'd park in front of our house and in front of our sidewalk that goes to our front door, and hey, George, can you have so-and-so move? Oh, I'm sorry, and then they'd move their car. This would present a problem if it was people we don't know that, we can't say, hey, George, it's new people, and also probably multiple families or friends that are going to stay there that'll have more than 1 or 2 cars. So I don't know if it was answered, but I kind of remember hearing something about a fire code or something of having 2 cars parked in the garage, and there can't be 2 cars parked in the driveway behind the cars.
It was in that PDR thing last week,
I kind of thought I heard that.
Architectural guy doing the designing of it was talking about.
That was.
But you can have 2 cars in the garage and 2 cars parked behind them in the driveway then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, if there's only.
It's residential, it's different than the commercial buildings?
Okay. So their driveway's really not, I mean, you can kind of see, it's a lot shorter than the ones on the rest of the house, the rest of the street. This home, it was a vacant lot when I moved in 23 years ago. There was no home there at all, and then they built it, kind of tried to fit it where they could. But so that means that in front of this house is not a normal parking area that you would have in front of the rest of the homes on the street. There's more room to park in front of the homes on the street than in front of this rental property. So that's why we always had an issue with people parking in front of our home instead, because it's kind of wedged in between the neighbor's driveway to the right, which is for sale, and then their house. So, and there's a telephone pole right there in the middle. We got a picture of it. I mean, so, and then if they wanted to park on the other side of their driveway, then it kind of goes on to where our property is, which is during the day would be okay, but at night, he comes home from work and want to park, and we've got a one-car garage, so he would park in the street, and it kind of, then you got to go around the car that's there, that's the neighbor's car, and as long as they're not impeding on our property, we didn't care. But if you're going to have a vacation rental that's going to have 4 or 5 cars there, yes, you'll have 6 people, 6 to 8 people, but that doesn't mean they're all going to ride together, or they're all going to ride in 2 cars. You could have, I've been to Airbnbs where friends meet up and there's 6 or 7 cars, and because the property can hold 8 to 12 people. So that's the issue that I have, those 2 things mostly. I don't have a worry about it being a party house, because I know there's already an ordinance. You can't be loud after 10 o'clock. That's not an issue because we're not the quietest people either. So that's not really my issue. I mean, it just, and it's residential. And I don't know where Washington's going to be if we keep having these residential areas turn into Airbnbs all over. I mean, I know that that's why this is called a special use permit, because it's a special use, but it doesn't say how long. I mean, it could be a special use they renew every year. That's not really a special use. That's, to me, permanent. I don't know if you have.
Well, like I explained to you guys last week as well, you know, nobody can park in front of your house overnight.
Right.
So, you know, if you have somebody past 10 o'clock in the evening.
I just don't want to have an issue where I
You
have
don't
to
wanna
call
make
the
an issue out
police.
of it, though,
I don't want
you
to call
know?
the police every week or, you know, every other day. I mean, that's not something that I want to look forward to. And she has well intentions, but they have no control of what happens when they rent this. They're not there to oversee who, you know, what the renters are doing. I don't want to have to call her, and I'm sure she'll say, well, you know, I'll give you our phone number, and you can, if you have a problem with the renters, well, that's fine. But I'm trying to prevent a problem, you know, because this is not a normal normal street situation with the way that the parking is in front of their house.
The only thing I can say, ma'am, is that my next door neighbor sold their house a couple months ago and new people moved in, thought, okay, this will be better. Now they're there. There's 2 cars in the garage. There's 4 cars in the driveway. There's 1 in front of their house and there's 1 in front of my house. They don't rent it. They own it.
Yeah, you can't
They bought
control
it and they own the house.
Right.
And now they're not good neighbors to me. I don't even, you know, it sucks. It does. But that happens if someone owns that house and does that. Someone who has 3 kids and now they're all 16, they have that issue. So for a city to not issue a permit because they might park in front of your house is difficult for us to do. You know what I'm saying?
I get that. That was
I
just one of the
understand what you're
things.
saying,
But the
but it's
screening
difficult.
thing's a major thing. Who's
Right.
the one that screens?
I wish I could have screened my neighbors when that was bought. I mean, that's simple. But
Well, and like I was asking last week too, you got 19 foot here in front of their house. I mean, that's more than capable of putting a car and a half. I mean, you're telling me that driveway's that steep? It doesn't look like it here.
It's pretty steep. I'd say it's
Yeah.
I can pull it up.
12 feet, somewhere in that area.
Would you like to see it on Street View?
No, I'm just, they got this picture here, but.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm not real concerned about that. We're not trying to be ignorant by any means, okay? We're just wanting to try to keep a residential neighborhood residential.
And as far as rentals, you know, I owned a house a couple down that I just got rid of, and there's a lot of rentals on that street, a lot of rental houses.
Not on,
Long-term
around
rentals,
the,
not short-term
around the
rentals.
corner?
Long-term, you know.
Yeah, but this is for a short term.
Right, well, year to year, long-term, but.
Right, exactly. I fully understand that. I get it. Yeah, there's rental houses everywhere. I mean,
We know,
you know.
Yeah.
we're not trying to hit a bus anybody, over the deal. We're just voicing our opinion and our concerns.
And that's what we were talking with your husband last week, the more you guys talk, those are things you can address to your clients, hey, be courteous, be this, exchange
get
phone
it.
numbers. And if their clients aren't being courteous, this is something that you guys, as
Right.
far as need to,
Who's gonna screen the
That's-
renters?
The city doesn't screen everybody
not
that
a-
moves into the city as far as that goes.
Right.
I mean,
It's up
and what do you
to
want us,
the
what do you want
homeowners
us to
doing it.
screen them for? I mean, I guess would be the question, but, and I don't know, that's up to Airbnb owners, of their taste.
some of them contract with, that do screening stuff.
Right.
I don't know their situation.
Verbo, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's all.
That's
we
all.
gotta say.
I
mean,
just
we're
wanted- I just
wanna
wanted to-
voice our opinion that we're not pleased with a residential neighborhood accepting a B&B that we're gonna have people that we don't know, and there are kids in the neighborhood, and there are pedophiles coming by or whatnot, who knows? You know what I'm saying?
don't
We might
know.
be blowing things out of proportion, but
Oh, no,
these
you're
are
just being concerned, like I told you last week. I get it. I really do. But at the same time, they're not gonna rent it
Right,
months
they're-
out of the
yeah.
year, so you're gonna have a lot, even more, maybe more privacy,
Right.
than
I get it.
somebody living there full time.
So how does a short-term, this permit thing work? Is it good for a year? They gotta renew it all the time?
Every short-term lodging has to, once it goes through this process, they register for their business license and their bed tax, and that expires every June. We do business licenses in June, and then every June, they have to do a new inspection to make sure they didn't add bedrooms or take down fire extinguishers, that kind of thing. And then once they pass the inspection, then it's good for the following year. So every June, they have to get an
It
inspection.
doesn't come back before the council.
No, it just gets inspected
right,
every
that's-
June.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
was-
oh, I figured that much. Okay, so it's,
we wanted to say.
so it's every year, it's good for a year? and then it
inspected every year.
gets inspected, and then it's up to, I guess, the city to decide if they're gonna let it continue?
So if they add bedrooms or like, there's not proper egress, or they have tenants that destroy, and not make it livable, then they can get the permit revoked.
Okay,
Their occupancy permit revoked.
Until they address those.
Correct.
okay.
It's
So
the same, an occupancy inspection for a single-family home is
Right.
the same for short-term lodging, except for you have to have fire extinguishers and exit lights shown. And so as long as they keep those up and don't add illegal bedrooms, then they can just,
They gotta have handrails on stairs and stuff like that?
same thing you would for anything
Like
else.
on
yeah.
a front porch and stuff, even though it's one step, or, I mean, how
I,
critical is it?
I don't know the building code off the top of my
We're
head,
just
but
asking because maybe we'll turn ours into one if we know what it is.
I don't know. So,
If that's
they-
the case.
but they do have to pass they have to pass the normal building code, and then there's like 2 or 3 additional things they have to pass.
Okay. I appreciate your time.
You're gonna do it too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing us to vet.
Yep, thanks for being here.
Anybody else? Need a motion to accept in the minutes.
Make a motion.
Motion by Holtmeyer,
Second.
second by Patke. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. It's in the minutes. Sherry?
An ordinance granting a special use permit to utilize 609 West 7th Street as a vacation rental in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Patke.
Introduced by Patke. Any other discussion? Any other discussions, guys? Okay, let's vote.
An ordinance granting a special use permit to utilize 609 West 7th Street as a vacation rental in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Patke?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Aye.
Briggs?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Bear?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye. By your vote, your ordinance is passed.
Special use permit 518 East 6th Street, short-term rental.
Okay. All right, your last public hearing tonight is another request for short-term lodging, a special use permit. This one on East Sixth Street, kind of on the other outskirts of downtown. You can see this 518 East Sixth is just east of Burnside, 2 houses east Burnside on 6th Street. You can see here on the aerial, one thing you can't tell is that it does have a car parked in the driveway there. I think in this older aerial, it wasn't as improved, but they're making some improvements. The applicant mentioned last week they're making improvements to the property currently. And you can see there is an existing short-term lodging catty corner across the street on the corner of Burnside and 6th, and so they're making the same request here. And then just to kind of give you some context of where it's at, so that, again, right outside of the R2, so it is single family, and that it's in the R1B. That darker blue is what's considered our overlay district along Fifth Street. That allows them outright Airbnbs or short-term lodging, and so you can kind of just see where they're at in the vicinity. Those yellow dots, when you get north of Fifth Street, there's quite a few. There's one on Fifth there, but there's 3 that are also in the R2 overlay district. So again, staff recommended approval of this for the same reasons we have on the past ones. It's just insignificant to the surrounding residential uses since they are residential in nature, and Planning and Zoning did vote unanimously to approve this last week. And we did not have anyone speak in opposition.
Sal, I hate to have you keep repeating these things. Now, explain to me again, what is the R2 overlay?
So the R2 overlay allows for single family and 2 family.
As permitted
So, yeah, as permitted uses, meaning you could stack them, kind of have a stacked duplex. The R1B, again, is just the denser single family. You can have smaller lots. And then C2 overlay is everything you could have in normal commercial, but the overlay allows for single and 2 family. And then as you get further to downtown, it kind of puts all of it into one.
The city went and took neighborhoods and looked to see what would be the appropriate zoning in some of these cases. Years ago, those areas were just zoned R2, a lot of them. And what they would do is, and we ran into situations where people wanted to do improvements on a house, and it was, housing for like a new property, or, or new homeowners, and they wanted to go ahead and fix it up. Well, then they wouldn't allow them to fix it up unless they got a special use permit because they were zoned R2, and which kind of seemed crazy. So what the city did was they finally looked at all of those neighborhoods and said, hey, look, we're going to identify these neighborhoods as either R1 or R2, just like Sal said, where you've got a rental upstairs and maybe a rental downstairs, or maybe you own the building and you just rent the upstairs, et cetera, some combination of that. So we did that. The neighborhood where I live over there on Rand Street, R2 overlay, that's all of that over there, especially over there because years ago you had the shoe factory that was in place, and the shoe factory wanted to encourage you to go ahead, or residents at that time, to redo their homes so that they could go on and take additional people so that the factory would have workers. So you had a lot of homes that were still occupied that way. So you've got these neighborhoods, and whenever you say R2 overlay, all that means is that rather than go to each block and house by house and say, well, okay, you're zoned single family, you're zoned R2, we just said R2 overlay and said single and 2 family are both permitted.
Over the years, we've had a lot of people either convert in that overlay district a duplex where you have one up, one down into one larger home, or vice versa. Someone buys it and wants rental property and split it up. And like Darren said, that would cause you guys would be seeing those monthly. And rather than have to be reviewed each time, we just approved an overlay district.
Thank you.
Chief, have we had a lot of calls to short-term rentals for any troubles?
No, none that I can recall. No. No parties or like you see on the news, so, yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Keep my fingers crossed, but no, we have not.
And if there's nothing else for me, I know the applicant is here.
Public comments.
I'm Diane Slider. I live at 500 East 6th Street. There is an Airbnb across the street from me, and I don't have an issue or problem with the lady that owns that. She lives in town, and she pretty much monitors the people that are there. It is an Airbnb, and so the discussion about if people are evaluated about coming into the property, I do not know about that, but I know that she's had really good renters. They've been very quiet. And she has encouraged everybody, it's a corner lot, to park either in her driveway or on Burnside or 6th Street to keep everybody in that area. I have a disabled husband. I try to keep my front sidewalk open so that when I have him come and go, I don't have to call the police to move cars or go beg neighbors to move cars. The problem I have with this particular house is that the owner lives in St. Louis, and I don't know if he's going to be monitoring what's going on. And I'm not concerned about people being there. I'm like the previous couple, a little bit concerned about the number of cars that are going to be there. It's a good-sized house. Irene, how many bedrooms? 3 bedrooms? They're remodeling it right now, and I think there's 3 bedrooms. It's a 2-story house, a big 2-story house. Fairly good-sized house, and so there potentially could be a number of people there with multiple cars. And I do have a neighbor, please, sir. I do have a neighbor who has a car that's been sitting in the street for more than a year, has never moved, and does not have any plates on it. If we can get that car out of the way, it might help. And the house that's in between my house and this house, sometimes, sir, has 4 and 5 and 6 cars there. They do seem to come and go, so I don't think that's an overall problem, but it's just, once again, where are all these people going to park if there are a lot of people that are coming in? And I know it's a city street and people can park up and down the street, but I do hope that the owners will request to respect the owner of that property to respect the people that actually own their house and where people are parking. So thank you.
Thank you.
And please give Chief that information about that vehicle before you leave.
I would love to.
Absolutely. Just give our office a call.
It was ticketed a year ago, and the young man pulled the ticket off, and the car's still sitting there. I would love to get that car.
Okay.
And you know you can call your councilman anytime you have situations like that. I'm not your councilman, but you know you're your councilman.
You can call both of them.
I'll just call the mayor. I know the mayor.
There you go.
Both of us.
Both of us.
Both of them. These two knuckleheads.
That's
Nice to meet you.
Same here.
Gee, Chief, that car's got to go now.
Yeah, oh, yeah. I'll make a call right now.
Grissom doesn't get reappointed, but he doesn't take care of that.
Right.
Any other
Too late,
comments?
you already did it.
Come on up, Zach.
Zachary Smith, I live in Kirkwood, Missouri, so I'm the owner of the house. So I don't know what information would be helpful for me right now, just I guess to give a brief plan like the other applicant did. We live in St. Louis, as she was mentioning, or outside of in Kirkwood. We come here periodically just because we like Washington. That's how we got the idea to get it. So we'll plan to spend some of the weekends here we've got 3 daughters, my wife and I, but then the thought was basically so we don't have a second mortgage to just also do short-term rentals. So we could do it periodically. We have no intentions of party house, no intentions of disrupting the neighborhood or anything else. Anybody that's going to destroy our house is obviously in our worst interest as well. So I think I'm happy. I've only met these 2. I have not met any other people on the street, but that's also because our house has now gone on like 7 months of renovating. I mean, it was taken down to like every nail in the house. It has taken much longer as we're coming out there now than to start decorating and stuff. We were going to kind of go around the neighborhood. I'm happy to take basically any policy. We can say driveway only and nothing else. I mean, it doesn't really make whatever the neighborhood kind of prefers, or we can we can find the streets that work for everybody for parking. It's 3 bedrooms. Plan would be for up to 6 guests. There's one corner that we're toying around with probably putting a futon in. So then you could say theoretically it could sleep up to 8. I don't think 2 adults would want to sleep there, but I guess to each their own. So I think that it would not be a 12-person house. I think it's more likely going to be 2 couples, 3 couples is probably our target audience. As far as screening, which I guess they're gone, there are a number of ways that you can screen the applicants. Are we going to pull have the police and private investigators do a test on every single applicant? Probably not. I mean, it is doable, but it's not really realistic. But there are a number of policies that you can do through Airbnb and VRBO that we plan to do. So, I mean, and there are a number of ways of saying anybody with no reviews we will not accept. You can have policies like that yourself so that you don't take any first-time rent, short-term rental users. So we plan to do that. Our goals are to basically protect our investment as much as possible, protect the neighborhood as much as possible. Our fallback plan, if it ends up being more of a headache or there are more headaches than expected, it's down the street. My wife and I are both physicians at Barnes. Our plan was to then just do a midterm rental for traveling nurses at Mercy, Washington. So I think that would be, if this ended up not working out for any reason, or if they thought it was not working out, then we're pretty much open to doing something like that and transitioning it from short-term rental to midterm rental or even long-term rental. That's, I guess, some little background, if that's helpful at all.
Something you can think about, being we've heard this a couple times already tonight, everybody worried about parking. Would it be out of line for the last couple and you guys to maybe put a little note on the inside of the door as they check in and stuff like that? Please do not park in front of, 608 or 610. My husband's handicapped, we need the room, be courteous. I don't think that's a big deal. I mean, I think that's just common practice. If, please don't park the neighbors in, please don't do this, because they don't know. They're coming in from out of town probably anyhow, so, it's something that'd be easily done, I think.
For sure. So I'd say we'd go even one step further than that. I mean, most of these, anybody that's using Airbnb or Vrbo or people that are usually using it from the app or from the website, it's all done via email. They all have basically, they receive everything ahead of time with all the rules and regulations. So, I mean, they will know where they're allowed to park and where they're not allowed to park. And then there's a welcome guide that's basically in the house also that has all the information about that. But I mean, parking from last week and this week seems to be number 1, number 2, and number 3 concern of everybody's. So, I mean, I think it's very easy to put that as top of the list, right? This is the parking situation. It has a 1-car garage. It has a driveway that can park 2 to 3, depending on the size. So, I mean, if we're literally having people that are having more than 4 cars, I guess there's a possibility they would need street parking. Our expectation would be hopefully no one ever even needs to park on the street, but if so, we can certainly say the streets that are allowed and certainly make that, yeah.
Denise across the street has a poster in the
Diane, can you go up? Can you come up to the podium?
No, you can do that, guys.
She has a poster in the dining room, posted a chalkboard, and says kind of what the rules are about the parking, about what trash day is, when recycle day is, when this is and when that is. And I think that's helped tremendously, because you're right, guests are from out of town, out of state, they don't know what we do. We still haven't figured out what we do about recycle. But it does help to have something like that poster. Sure. It's right there, people see it, and they know what's going on.
Yeah. Okay. So we can do all of that. I mean, this is easy stuff. I mean, it's, I'm now in over my head and renovations. It's like the movie The Money Pit, so I'm just waiting, for something else to happen. So, I mean, signs is easy. This will be the easiest thing I did all year. So we can do any of that. We're totally happy to do that. And I think that, we're very much, we want less headaches than they even want. So, I mean, we're definitely going to canvass the neighborhood for opinions, on best ways of doing it, so.
I think it's quite enlightening, the lady before, yourself, Zach, too, that you guys are living, you're only 30 miles away, 40 miles away, but you want to come to Washington because you enjoy it here. Mm-hmm. Just like everything else we hear up here, it's a little bit of good news. You want to be here part-time. You want to be here, whether it's vacation here, spend weekends here, whatever, and this is just fill the gap on the house as far as that goes. So to me, that sounds promising, too. That's kind of what I see ideally for short-term rental here, because you want to come spend time one weekend, rent it out the next weekend, be courteous to the neighbors. So what could be opposition, what could be a problem, I think has turned into a good in both situations tonight. So
I think
thank you.
I've spent more time in the house than I have. So, but
all right,
yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, we're trying to do it as, again, we're not invasion of the outsiders trying to steal the small town. I mean, I think that, I'm from Sykeston, so, originally I'm not from St. Louis, but, we just enjoy our time out here. I was at Olivino earlier, just talking to the owner there about doing little bottles of, olive oil from there as a gift, welcome gift for people, because it's at least something local, that type of thing, or doing, a bottle of wine from triple theory or something. So, I mean, we'll try to do our best to be good neighbors, just like we are in our own neighborhood, so.
Great.
We were the bad candy neighborhood, is what my daughters told me for Halloween, but besides that, we're pretty good neighbors. Yeah, no, I know. I tried to find the balance between not being the person that gives out a toothbrush, but also not being the full-size candy bar, and said I was healthy candy, and it was not a hit. Yeah. So, anyway.
They're gonna be.
Thanks you.
I think it's gonna work out.
Comments?
Thank you.
Zach.
Thank you, Zach. Other comments, you guys?
No. Pretty much sums it up.
All right. Go ahead, Sherry.
I'll get out.
I need a motion
Yeah, we need
to accept it.
Accept in the minutes.
Motion
So
to
moved.
accept.
Second.
Motion by Patke, second by Hydrich. All those in favor, say aye.
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 An ordinance granting a special use permit to utilize 518 East 6th Street as a vacation rental in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Bear.
Introduced by Bear.
No more discussion?
Any more discussion?
Nope.
Read it.
No more chuckles. Go ahead.
An ordinance granting a special use permit to utilize 518 East 6th Street as a vacation rental in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Patke?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Aye.
Briggs?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Bear?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
By your vote, the ordinance passes. Congrats, Zach. You got a short-term rental.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, if anybody needs a urological needs.
That's a very open question there.
Oh, man.
Well, you do have.
Anybody over 65?
I hope he doesn't hang around out there after the meeting
I'll
when
be
we all
there.
run in there.
I'll be there.
Okay, on that note, citizens' comments?
There you go.
Yeah.
Citizens' comments. Anybody else?
Ken,
Mr. Mr. Washburn, would you like to come up, please?
Good night.
Good evening, thank you.
Aye.
Ken Washburn, 2784 Stonecrest Drive. The subject we're here tonight is South Point Road. I've talked to our Ward 2 gentlemen already about it. Some of you may know there's been extensive construction there for the last 6 or 8 weeks or more, involving paving and sewer systems and very extensive work. During that working time, they took down all the signage, including speed limits and directional signage and caution signs. And so I think our subject here is, when is all that going to be replaced?
We could ask the Special Road District, since they were the ones that issued the contract for that work. We were a part of it, we contributed to it financially, but they were the ones that contracted to get the work done. But needless to say, we can go ahead and contact Special Road District and ask them when they plan on putting have the contractor put the signs back up.
You're suggesting that I...
No,
Oh,
I'm not.
okay.
I'm suggesting we can find out, but I'm just saying it's not I'm just trying to be clear, it was not the city's contract to get that work completed. That was the
Okay.
Special Road District. So, but we know the contractor, we know the Washington Special Road District, we'll contact them and find out when those signs are going back up.
Well, there is an enforcement issue there because of now they're without any signage. Not that anybody ever paid any attention to the speed limit sign, but especially the large, heavy industrial type dump trucks, tanker trucks, and so forth, it's 55 plus almost on a daily basis. So I don't know if the police, is that part of your venue or?
It goes in and out of the city limits.
You all right? All right. That's a great question. It would depend upon which location of South Point Road that you're on.
That's the age-old question.
And we know, I mean, it's hard for me to explain that sitting here without a map, but essentially the intersection with Deutschcrest Drive, so the first entrance in the Stonecrest, not your entrance, yours is the second entrance.
Right.
But that first entrance to Stonecrest Drive, approximately a quarter mile up the hill, as you go to your entrance, is in the
Further
city.
west?
To the south. is in city limits.
Okay.
Towards you, yes. And then just pick a number, approximately a tenth of a mile to the north is in city limits. Everything outside of that is not in city limits. That's in, it's in Franklin County. So Franklin County would have jurisdiction over that.
Exactly.
We are, with that, it is, I think, a goal of the cities to potentially work with Special Road District and Franklin County to see if we can get jurisdiction over that. But that's an ongoing process.
That would be an ideal thing,
And-
because
and-
we've had a long history of this confusion.
And I think the important part here is to just keep reiterating that would include essentially annexing the right-of-way, none of the properties along there that are in Franklin County. There is zero interest in doing that. But if the right-of-way could be annexed, even the neighbors that are in the county adjacent who have speed complaints, I think would potentially see a better service just because the City of Washington Police Department's close.
Well, yes, that's,
So that's a goal that
right.
I'm pretty confident we could probably achieve in a relatively short amount of time. That's kind of the last the last step, I guess, in the process of upgrading South Point Road would be that.
So is it in the process?
There's been discussions.
It is?
Yes,
Okay.
been
At
discussions
this
with
level?
Special Road District. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I think I've even briefed council that was part of it.
One quicker resolution, Mr. Washburn, would be if you convince those 6 property owners on South Point Road to voluntarily annex into the city of Washington, we would automatically take over South Point Road.
Yeah.
We'll put you on the payroll if you can do that.
If you can do that, we'll put you on the payroll.
What was that?
I said, we'll put you on the payroll if you can do that.
Put it on these two fellows here.
My point is, there's a lot of opposition for those houses on South Point Road to be in the city limits. They want to stay and not annex in, and therefore, we go from city to county to city to county. The problem lies.
Yeah, we have discussed this issue over a long period of time.
But I would reiterate that was not the goal of improving South Point Road, and that there is a potential that we can annex the right-of-way.
Correct.
Even without having to get the properties. So that's what the next step is, and I think that ultimately meets everyone's needs.
More likely.
Now,
Correct.
those of you who really know South Point or can visualize it, is a very high residential occupation, I guess is the word, on both sides of the road, especially on the east end. Some of these properties are right on the road, others that are in Stonecrest are very close to it. The accesses through these 2 entrances that you talked about, it's just a constant severe situation, and it really should be addressed. And
Ken, that new pavement's pretty nice though, isn't it?
what's that?
That new pavement is pretty nice.
Well, it is, and it goes just about up to that line, the street that you were talking about.
There is in speaking with the Washington Special Road District, there is a second phase to that will start at the south of that construction, work its way through the intersection with Deutschcrest to the new water tower that is going to be constructed
At
on
North
North
Goods
Goods
Mill.
Mill. So that last section is being programmed. to be
Further
completed.
paving westward?
Correct.
Okay,
Southern, towards your property.
okay.
But yes, that is the next phase as revenue becomes available to
Any idea of timing?
well, the potential would be there even in going into next year that it could be
Okay.
programmed. So again, that's City of Washington working with the Special Road District jointly to get everyone's needs met. So
Okay.
be confident that we're working on it.
Okay, well, it sounds like it's well in hand. I'm going to turn it over to these 2 fellows.
We got it.
They're capable hands, right?
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other citizens' comments? Okay.
Report of department heads, Franklin County Narcotics Enforcement Unit Joint Contract.
That's a mouthful.
It is.
Okay, council. In your package, you had a copy of the joint contract, and I'll give you a brief history of what happened here. Since the inception of the drug task force, we've operated under MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. it recently came to light that the task force had inadequate insurance coverage, meaning they had no coverage. So our officers that participate in the task force have always been covered under our current carrier.
Our officers have been covered.
Yeah, they're covered.
Just to make
They
sure.
have been covered, yes. So the cities of Union Pacific and St. Clair decided that they weren't going to participate any longer because they could not obtain insurance under the MOU. So it was decided that a joint contract, which you have in your packet, meets the needs to obtain insurance for both those cities and the task force to obtain additional insurance specifically for the task force, including the board, of which I sit on also. In case there's an incident, not only could potentially the officers that are on the task force be sued, but the board itself could be, so we want a protection there also. So, long story short, the joint contract will allow the task force to obtain insurance and these other three agencies to obtain insurance for themselves. If that makes sense.
And Chief, did Mark Piontek get a chance to look at? He's
Absolutely.
Okay with everything?
He's actually the one that wrote it, so, for the county. Yep.
So I think what Jim's asked for you tonight, I just wanted to bring it to your attention tonight, but then with your recommendation to move on to council, we'll have it available for you to vote on at the first meeting in December, correct?
That's the goal.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Make a motion, move it on.
Second. Motion by Holmeyer, second by Patke. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes.
And just, if I could add also, just to update the council, recently I did re-implement having one of our officers, a detective. He's working with the task force on average 2 to 3 days a week. I think that's important to maintain that relationship. It's already proved positive. We've made a couple good cases in town. I think that connection helps with him working with the task force directly, and then they have the ability to focus on some problems here in town. So we made some good cases recently based on that.
How many do you have?
We just have one working
Okay.
with the task force. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ordinances and resolutions. An ordinance accepting the quote from Alex Air Apparatus and to approve the purchase of a battery-operated extrication tool.
Hydrich.
Introduced by Hydrich. Go ahead, Tim.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In your packet this evening, there is a letter as well as quotations from Alex Air and Sentinel Emergency Services for an extrication tool. This will complete the first round of replacement and equipping all of our engines with the standardized equipment throughout the entire fleet. Alex Air was selected a little bit. They are a higher bid. They were selected. They were $200 higher. They were selected from a long-standing relationship as well as service. In fact, we have 3 of their tools on loan right now. Our primary hydraulic portable pump is down, and so they loaned us 3 tools at no cost while that tool is being replaced or repaired. They do all of the maintenance work, service work come in regularly, and they have a rep out of Jeff City, so we've been using them for probably close to 25 years, if not 30 years. And we are under budget by $202.
Discussion? I like that part. Okay. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
An ordinance accepting the quote from Alex Air Apparatus and to approve the purchase of a battery-operated extrication tool. Patke?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Aye.
Briggs?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Bear?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Holmeyer?
Aye.
Washers.
From Washington.
Not Washington, but Wash.
Worship. Motion passes.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the acceptance of a quote from Dry Fork Steel and Supply LLC for the purchase of aluminum 3-rail perimeter
Perimeter.
perimeter fence for the Phoenix Park Playground. I'm tired.
Introduced by Hydrich. Sorry.
All right, good evening again. In your packet was a recommendation for a fence around Phoenix Park Playground. That's the final piece of that project. We bid the project out, received 3 bids ranging from $32,000 to Dry Forks bid at $28,411. And this fence would prevent kids from running out into the parking lot or wandering down the hill into the retention pond below. Any questions? There would be several gates, an access gate for us to install the mulch or remulch it, and it did come in under bid, or under budget, I should say, of $30,000. And expected to get the materials in a couple weeks and weather dependent, be installed by mid-January.
Is this a chain link?
No, aluminum fence.
Okay, so it says 3, so you got 3 horizontal and then,
Yeah, the
Like pickets?
Pickets, and then
Okay.
2 on the top and 1 on the bottom.
oh, I got you.
Aluminum rails.
I got you, okay,
Similar to what's at the fairgrounds.
okay.
And Dry Fork Steel has done other projects in the city.
Yes, they did work for us at the Ronzik Field when we were doing that project recently.
Thank you for getting us pushed along, Wayne. Lots of phone calls on that one.
Other questions? Okay.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the acceptance of a quote from Dry Fork Steel and Supply LLC for the purchase of an aluminum 3-rail perimeter fence for Phoenix Park Playground. Patke,
Yes.
Hydrich,
Aye.
Briggs,
Yes.
Reed,
Yep.
Bayer,
Yes.
Coulter,
Yes.
Wessels,
Aye.
Holtmeyer.
Aye.
By your vote, we have a new fence.
Thank you.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the city of Washington, Missouri to enter into a sales contract with Clark Equipment Company doing business as Bobcat Company, West Fargo, North Dakota, for the purchase of a T77024 Bobcat compact track loader with 18-inch planter miller.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
Good evening, council. This is a skid steer that we did have in our budget. We had a skid steer, we had a miller, and a snowplow all budgeted in. The total package together came out $7,700 under budget. Some of you'll notice that the skid steer we're going to replace is only about 5 or 6 years old, and we plan to transition that out to our landfill. Probably on a monthly basis, we are borrowing skid steers from the street department. We borrow from the water department. Sometimes we have to rent skid steers because we just can't get them borrowed to us. So this is going to put a skid steer out there for us at the landfill. If you recall also, last year, you approved a purchase of a new miller for our asphalt milling. Well, we ordered the identical miller, but when it showed up, there were some safety items that our miller had that the new model did not have. So we rejected it and sent it back, rolled the money over this year, and went with a larger one that had the safety components we wanted. This is done under a purchasing agreement contract, similar to the state bid. The difference with the ordinance, you're going to see an ordinance for the skid steer first with the miller coming from the Bobcat Company, and the second one comes from Bobcat of St. Louis.
Is this, it's for streets also? So is this, have like a rubber tracks? or-
It is, it's a rubber track. It's going to be for the street department, and then the old one will be reutilized out at the landfill.
And what's a planer?
It mills the asphalt like a grinder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Overlays, take that down, get those layers on.
We have
See
a
it at the curb,
14 inch.
The edge of the curbs, typically, whenever we're doing a street.
Yeah.
Other questions, discussion?
I guess we can use this on Camp Street Bridge, mill that down.
Actually, it's part of next year's paving project because we're going to need to have probably a 7-foot mill come in to get that. And we're going to, like any bridge without concrete approaches, you're going to be chasing that one forever, because that's just how it is. When you do that, when you build bridges like that, you can have slabs of concrete there to rest on that to support that. But typically, they'll run $200,000. So you just chase it as a strategy. That's the one that was win on Camp Street.
Tony, the reason you went with Bobcat is 'cause you reuse all your implements all over again. You don't have to.
All the implements are they all match up. We did demo another model. The water department has a Kubota we did sample. Some of my operators had critiqued it and were not pleased with it. They definitely wanted to stick with the Bobcat.
Very good. No questions further? Okay, Sherry, how about read C, if you would, please?
An ordinance authorizing and directing the city of Washington, Missouri to enter into a sales contract with Clark Equipment Company, doing business as Bobcat Company, West Fargo, North Dakota, for the purchase of a T77024 Bobcat compact track loader with 18-inch planter miller. Patke?
Yes.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Briggs?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Bear?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Okay. Can we do D
Yeah.
right now also?
You have to.
That was on the same discussion. Okay, go ahead, Sherry. D, please.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the city of Washington, Missouri to enter into a sales contract with Bobcat of St. Louis, Valley Park, Missouri for the purchase of a Vernig V60 HSBP 144 snowplow blade pusher.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer. Any
We already
further
did it,
discussion?
didn't we? Basically? Yeah.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the city of Washington, Missouri to enter into a sales contract with Bobcat of St. Louis, Valley Park, Missouri for the purchase of a Vernig V60 HSBP 144 snowplow blade pusher.
Yes.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Briggs?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Bear?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
By vote, ordinance passes. Next.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the city of Washington, Missouri to accept the maintenance services agreement from RCC Inc., doing business as Radiocom Company for the preventative maintenance of Washington's radio fleet, tower repeater, and base stations.
Pat?
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
Good evening, Council. This is agreement that we've had in place since I've been here. Radiocom handles all of our two-way radio communication for all of the field fleet rated trucks. It's just our contract ran out with them, so we needed to start a new one. So we reevaluated it and realized we didn't use many man hours as we had previously thought. So we was able to reduce that with a savings of about $900. So we just need to start it all over so we can keep on moving.
Questions?
An ordinance authorizing and directing the city of Washington, Missouri to accept the maintenance services agreement from RCC Inc., doing business as Radiocom Company for the preventative maintenance of Washington's radio fleet, tower, repeater, and base stations. Patke?
Yes.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Briggs?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Bear?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
By your vote, the ordinance passes. F, please.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the city of Washington, Missouri to accept the preventative maintenance agreement from Vandeventer Engineering for the maintenance of Washington's wastewater collection lift stations.
Patke?
Introduced by Patke.
Yes, this is an agreement between Vandeventer Engineering. They are the ones that supply all of our flight pumps that we're putting in our lift stations. This will give us the ability, what they're going to do is they'll come in every year and they'll do what they call an 11-point inspection, which checks everything that we can't check as a maintenance crew. This will also give us instead of a 5-year prorated warranty, it actually makes it a 5-year unlimited warranty. So if anything goes wrong with them pumps within the next 5 years, it's covered 100%. And it'll also give us future 6% discount on any future work needed on the pumps that aren't part of the agreement, which will be a savings to the city as we move on. So The pumps, these flight pumps are tough, bulletproof pumps, but they do have their internal workings that need to be checked out, what we can't do as with the technology we have. We need to have those guys come in and do that.
Bless you. Thank you. Kevin, is this something we've had in the past, this agreement?
No, this is the first time we're doing it. They just, the flight factory just instated this agreement that the suppliers can use. Vandeventer is the sole source supplier for flight in the St. Louis, Illinois region. So they opened it up for them to be able to offer to us, and they came to me right away because we do have quite a few flight pumps in the system to give us a better benefit for our money that we spend, so.
No more questions? Okay, go ahead, Sherry.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the city of Washington, Missouri to accept the preventative maintenance agreement from Vandeventer Engineering for the maintenance of Washington's wastewater collection lift stations. Patke?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Aye.
Briggs?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Bear?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
By your vote, the ordinance passes. Number G, please.
Thank you, council.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the acceptance of a proposal by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and SCS Engineers for the semi-annual groundwater monitoring program at the Strickoff Sanitary Landfill.
Patke.
Introduced by Patke.
Okay, council, in your packet, you'll see a letter signed by Andrea. This is a standard groundwater monitoring in our landfill, $25,200. It's a budgeted purchase. SCS comes in and monitors groundwater from our groundwater wells and then submits that to DNR for review. We have not had any issues with our groundwater at the landfill, so some permit requirement.
Great. Discussion? Nope. Nope. Okay, go ahead, Sherry.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the acceptance of a proposal by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and SCS Engineers for the semi-annual groundwater monitoring program at the Strickoff Sanitary Landfill. Patke?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Aye.
Briggs?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Bear?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
By your vote, that ordinance passes. How about letter H, please?
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a lease agreement by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and Gateway Fiber LLC.
Patke.
Introduced by Patke.
As you're aware of, Gateway Fiber is in our community, trying to go ahead and extend fiber throughout the community and provide it to our residents or those that want it. As a result, they needed a location for a lease. They preferred to have located up at the Crestview Water Tank site. We negotiated with them back and forth and came to the conclusion they needed 225 square foot. It's a 15 by 15 foot area just right off of Crestview Drive. All staffs looked at that with regards to the location and are happy with that. Terms of the lease are $500 monthly for 5 years with the option to renew said lease for 5 successive terms after the first term. So, staff recommends approval of entering into the lease. This will allow us to go ahead and have a revenue to go ahead and pay for maintenance of that park up there because we have utilized, Wayne has utilized, I think, Clay Camp, when we had our contract with Clay Camp, that has expired. He'll be soliciting companies this winter to go ahead and move forward. But this is one of the areas that they did go ahead, I think, and take over at some point. The water department,
Yeah.
the parks department didn't know for sure who should be taking it over because at some point it was water, and then there was a group, I think the forestry group, put in some kind of trees, et cetera, and put in a
Tree
little
farm or
park,
tree,
and then it became like, well, whose area is it to cut, et cetera. Well, this will take care of that too, just by these guys putting these utility cabinet in, we'll have this lease.
So what do they want to do, put it like a job trailer up there so they got a location?
No, this is like a permanent, just like a cabinet, a utility cabinet that you
Like
would,
a junction box.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Did I read in there somewhere that besides the rental or whatever that we will receive, that we'll also receive some sort of fiber optic service from them, or no?
No,
City won't?
we did not ask for that at this time. We didn't.
Good idea, Mark.
We would rather have more, we would rather have a higher rent. They provided that, they did have a draft on that they've used for other communities that they've gone in. I saw a copy of one in Darden Prairie, and I can't remember some other city as well, but,
Guys, the terms of this lease is really favorable to us, thanks to Darren. Other
somebody's
discussion?
got to be the bad guy.
Go ahead, Sherry.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a lease agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Gateway Fiber LLC. Patke,
Yes.
Heidrich, Briggs,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Bear,
Yes.
Coulter,
Yes.
Wessels,
Aye.
Holtmeyer.
Aye.
By your vote, ordinance passes. Letter I, Sherry.
An ordinance repealing ordinance number 22-13507 and enacting in lieu thereof an ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a development agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Big Elm LLC and amend the 2023 budget.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
Okay, good evening, again, council. This agreement was put into place, I believe, earlier in 2022 to extend High Street to the south. That is part of the comprehensive plan to do so. It would also then, part of the agreement would require the connection to the Autumn Leaf subdivision, which would provide a secondary access out of Autumn Leaf into Autumn Leaf. It also would extend a water line to the Autumn Leaf subdivision, which currently is underserved from pressure and a flow standpoint, and it has been identified in our ISO study, so it would solve both of those issues. It would construct a fairly large box culvert in the current creek situation. I've already worked with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the Missouri Department of Natural Resources to get the mitigation credits identified, and we're working through that. It provides a construction deadline, I believe, of May 1st, 2023, so that connection will be made. Part of the original agreement, it left two line items that were not identified, one being probably the biggest one was the box culvert. The reason for that is we did not have design done when we went into agreement, so we didn't know really how big it was. It was substantially larger than what I really anticipated. But what you'll see there is that we had budgeted $400,000 the transportation sales tax, $300,000 from the stormwater fund for the box culvert, and then $50,000 partial for the water fund for the water line, for a total of $750,000. After the final design came in, I broke it out. Transportation sales tax is approximately $375 and some change. The stormwater, the box culvert itself jumped up to $522. The water fund was $77,983 for a total of $975,000. With that, we have appropriate dollars in the transportation sales tax and the water fund. So the only one that is underfunded when you break out those sources would be the stormwater fund. So it requires a budget amendment of $225,000. Again, that's a large sum of money. But with the current cost situation, we did see a pretty large increase on inflationary numbers, and that box culvert was substantially larger. I estimated it somewhere around a 10 by 10. It was a 12 by 12, and the dollar numbers came in pretty substantially higher when it did that. So once this is approved, or should you approve this, the developer, or I'm sorry, the contractor will immediately order all the equipment and those things, and he's already pre-graded his portion, Sophia Drive, and that infrastructure's already in. So it's moving on his end. This would allow us to take care of our stuff, and you will have a second connection on Autumn Leaf, May 1st of 2023, and a connection to the next farm to the south.
What'd you say the date was?
May 1st, 2023. Yep, so they're grading now, and they had the ability to do so. It's their property, so there was really no, the risk was really on them, so.
Other questions?
That stormwater fund might dwindle real quick with the new DNR regulations. We might be looking at a whole new deal here shortly.
You definitely could. I mean, I think that's part of the long-range plan that we're going to have to go ahead and take a look at and see if we need to use that as a resource. The city's used that fund to actually have borrowed funds out of there to help pay for other projects in the past and then repaid it back in. So the good news is that based on what the tax has been bringing in, it keeps growing exponentially every year. So that's the good news. So.
And that was, well, back to that discussion just a little bit, that was one of the biggest things, the biggest positives, I guess, that really came out of that DNR review is we have a funding source already. You're not fighting totally from zero, which is huge.
You're not crawling out of the rabbit hole.
Correct. It's just we haven't historically utilized that for this type of permit need. It was always identified as a large-scale fund to fund something else, but you can see that presentation. So.
Go ahead, Sherry.
An ordinance repealing ordinance number 22-13507 and enacting lieu thereof, an ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a development agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Big Elm LLC and amend the 2023 budget. Patke?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Aye.
Briggs?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Bear?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Wessels? Holtmeyer?
Aye.
By your vote, the ordinance passes. Last one.
An ordinance establishing the rate of compensation of the city councilor of the City of Washington, Missouri.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
Mark had contacted me prior to the start of our budget year and requested the fee to go ahead and go up. We recommend to do so. The fee that he's currently under is $185 per hour. That is a, dare I say, a hometown discount already. And even with the $195, it's very reasonable compared to the other rates. The only thing I had asked him to do was make sure that we get a cheaper rate than Franklin County, but that's okay. Other than that.
I guess we're the bargain up here then.
Any coincidence that he's not
What
here?
are we giving up here?
Yeah.
You are given the hometown rate. That's what
Damn,
I'm saying.
we're giving you guys a hell of a bargain.
You're leading by example.
Thinking everybody in the city got a raise, but
Councilman.
Other discussion?
I think the
Good.
council raises needs to be a different discussion, but it does need to be a discussion. But I'll make, I mean, I know Mark gives a discount, whatever. I just, yeah. Been doing it a long time. I don't know, is there anyone else out there?
Of course.
There's other people out there that want to do it?
I don't know that we've ever been contacted by anybody else who wants to do it.
That was my other
Certainly
question.
people that are, I'm
We,
sorry.
we don't have applications, we don't have a,
No. And this
Nobody
is,
ever runs
this is
against
separate, this is separate, no, but you have to understand, this is a separate from what he does when he's prosecutor. So that's a whole different.
Yeah.
That's a
That's
whole
where he's
different thing.
elected, yeah.
That's where he's elected to that position.
Right.
You can have him elected to that position and hire your own legal counsel for the city council, for the city in general.
How much would your kid charge?
but we don't make that,
Hometown?
how do I want to say this? It's not a practice that we do. We look for someone else yearly.
No, this is not something that would go out for RFQs or anything, no.
Okay.
See, is that, as prosecutor, is that paid through us or through the county?
I think that is paid through us, yes.
Same rate, I assume?
A lot cheaper. I can get you that number, what it's in the budget, but it's not for very much money. It's down to the rate that you guys serve for, put it that way.
The value, hometown value.
Other discussion? Okay.
An ordinance establishing the rate of compensation of the city councilor of the City of Washington, Missouri. Patke?
You should have been here. Yes.
Hydrich?
I agree, yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Reed?
yes.
Bear?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
By your vote, the ordinance passes.
Mayor's report?
I don't have much tonight. You guys, it's been a long night. I don't want to take up too much time, but Borgia boys soccer team won the state championship this last weekend. They did very well in swimming. A week or so ago, our girls softball team at Washington High took third, and they won the state last year, so they're going to go again next year. So anyway, that's pretty cool. So if you see some of those families, kids or grandpas or grandmas, give them a good on you.
Your Honor, if I may, I was at the state championship game on Saturday, and I'll tell you the one thing that was better than winning a state championship was the guys on the field went to the opposing goalie who was on the ground, obviously mourning. They just lost with a incredible show of sportsmanship, and it's now plastered all over newspapers and Misha websites. So it's a good thing. It shows sportsmanship, shows what our town kids are made of. So I figured bring that up. So thank you.
Cool.
City Administrator's report.
No report.
Council comments.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Hey.
Ditto.
I thought you were sleeping tonight. Good to hear you.
Keep an eye on you.
Any other comments?
Tony, great job on those leaves. Great job. Keep it up. Great job.
Good stuff.
That's enough, Sherry.
Well, as long as you take care of
I just need a motion to adjourn, please.
I so move, Shari.
Thank you.
Second?
I need a second, please.
Second.
Thank you.
Mike Coulter. All those in
Thank
favor?
you.